Welcome back, my fearless seekers of supernatural, to my channel, where walls whisper, hallways echo, and the past never truly fades. Tonight, we venture into a place most of us know well, schools. But these are no ordinary schools. These are schools where the desks remember the laughter, the lockers remember the secrets, and the studenza never left. Across Georgia, classrooms hold more than lessons. They hold restless spirits, a students forever frozen in mid-step, whispering in empty corridors, moving chalk on blackboards, and sometimes are reaching out to the living. So dim the lights, hold your backpack close, and follow me as we explore the 25 most haunted schools in Georgia where students never left. Because in these hallways, the past lingers, and the dead still attend class. Old Troup County High School in LaGrange stands as a proud reminder of another era. Its red brick walls and tall windows weathered by nearly a century of wind, rain, and memory. Built in the 1920s, the building once symbolized progress, a beacon of learning for the small Georgia community that gathered around it. But as time passed and new schools rose elsewhere, the old halls began to quiet. Desks sat empty, chalkboards gathered dust, and the laughter of children faded into something else entirely. Whispers, soft footsteps, and the faint echoes of lives that refused to be forgotten. Today, the school is a place of fascination for those drawn to the mysterious. Former teachers and night custodians speak of odd occurrences they cannot explain. Chalk sometimes writes itself on the blackboard, slowly forming words no one remembers writing. Desks scrape across the floor as if moved by unseen hands. Some who have entered after dark swear they have heard the faint giggle of a child echoing down the empty corridors. When they follow the sound, always fades just around the next corner, always a few steps ahead. Locals tell the same story again and again, the one that seems to lie at the center of the haunting. It happened sometime in the 1930s, when the school was still full of life. A young girl, bright and curious, was running late for class. Her shoes tapped quickly across the tile hallway as she hurried up the main staircase. But in her haste, she tripped. The fall was steep and swift. Some say she hit her head on the rail, others that she landed at the bottom before anyone could reach her. By the time help arrived, it was too late. The story spread quietly through the town, a tragedy that left the teachers weeping and her classmates silent for days. Her name has been lost over the decades. The school records from that time are faded, and no one seems sure which classroom she belonged to. Yet everyone who spent time inside the building after dark believes she's still there. They call her the girl on the stairs. Custodians who worked late cleaning the halls have heard her shoes a distinct, steady tapping moving down the corridors when the building should be silent. At first, they assumed another person was there, but each time they checked, the halls were empty. One janitor swore he saw a faint shape near the stairwell, the outline of a girl in an old-fashioned dress, her head bowed, her form flickering like a reflection in rippling glass. He left the building that night and never returned to finish his shift. Students who attended the school before it closed remember strange moments too. Some claim the mirrors in the girls' restroom near the east wing would cloud over suddenly, even when the air was dry. In that mist, a pale face would sometimes appear not their own, but that of a young girl with hollow eyes staring back. A few said she seemed to mouth words, though no one could ever make out what they were. Others said that when they tried to wipe away the fog, their reflection lagged a second behind, as if something else was moving within it. Teachers, too, had their share of encounters. One recalled erasing a blackboard after class, only to return the next morning to find words scrawled across it in perfect cursive handwriting. Still here. One recalled erasing a blackboard after class, only to return the next morning to find words scrawled across it in perfect cursive handwriting. Still here. Another said Shady arranged the desks in neat rows before leaving for weekend, and when she came back, several were turned toward the door, as if a silent audience had gathered overnight. Another said Shady arranged the desks in neat rows before leaving for the weekend, and when she came back, several were turned toward the door, as if a silent audience had gathered overnight. When the school finally closed its doors for good, the ghost stories didn't stop. If anything, they grew stronger. With the building empty, paranormal investigators began to visit. Recorders picked up faint whispers, a sometimes laughter, sometimes what sounded like a chilled sob. In the stairwell, temperature drops were common, sudden chills that made every hair on the neck stand on end. Cameras often malfunctioned near the second landing, the spot where the girl was said to have fallen. One team left a small ball on the floor near the base of the stairs, hoping to provoke a response. After several minutes of silence, the ball rolled back toward them, as if nudged by an invisible hand. When they played back the audio, a faint giggle could be heard just before the movement, a soft and quick, the laugh of a little girl at play. The old school has since been used for community events, storage, even film projects. But no matter what happens there, the feeling of being watched never goes away. Visitors often describe a pressure in the air, a weight that seems to settle on their shoulders. Some say they hear faint music, an old piano melody drifting from a long-abandoned classroom, though the instrument itself was removed years ago. The girl on the stairs remains a most enduring presence. Those who claim to have seen her describe her as delicate, translucent, her dress fluttering as if moved by a gentle breeze that does not exist. Her face is pale, her eyes sad but searching, as though she is still trying to find her way to class. Sometimes she appears near the stairwell where she died, sometimes in the hallway mirrors, and sometimes standing quietly at the end of the corridor when the lights flicker out. Locals say if you visit the old Troup County High School at night and listen closely, you might hear her, the faint tapping of her shoes echoing through the empty halls, a lonely rhythm that never stops. Ida S. said that if you whisper her name, even though no one remembers what it was, she might answer back with a soft giggle, a sound that dances between sorrow and memory. And as long as the old school stands, her spirit will remain, forever walking those halls, forever climbing those stairs, forever a part of LaGrangia's haunted history. Walton High School in Monroe holds nearly a century of history within its brick walls, but Ida S. the old gymnasium, long closed to students, that captures the most attention. What was once a place filled with cheers, sneakers squeaking, and the thump of basketballs against polished what is now silent or should be. The building stands at the edge of the old school grounds, its windows clouded and its floorboards warped by time. Yet for those who dare to step inside after dark, silence is the one thing they never find. Faded banners still hang from the rafters, their colors dim but their words, state champions and go Raiders, barely visible in the weak light that filters through the cracks. During the day, the gym looks like any other relic of a bygone era. But when night falls, the air changes. The temperature drops, the shadows seem to move on their own, and faint, rhythmic sounds echo through the dark. It usually begins with a single bounce. One hollow, distinct thud, the unmistakable sound of a basketball hitting the floor. Those Wovi heard it say it happens when no one else is around, often echoing from the center of the court where the moonlight spills through a broken window pane. The ball seems to move without human touch, as if guided by invisible hands. Sometimes it rolls across the floor and stops at the feet of a visitor, as though waiting for someone to pick it up and play. Teachers who worked at the school before the gym was closed tell stories of hearing footsteps late at night. The sounds are steady, purposeful sneakers pacing across the wood, circling the gym and then fading away. Lockers slam shut in empty hallways. Doors creak open even when locked. The janitors who once cleaned the building learn to finish their work before sunset, quietly avoiding the gym after dark. The legend behind these strange events traces back to 1948, to a boy whose name has been mostly lost time. He was a student athlete, known for his dedication and love of the game. His friends remembered how he stayed late after practice, perfecting his free throws long after everyone else had gone home. On weekends, he would walk down to the nearby creek with his teammates, where they'd cool off after long games. One summer afternoon, after a championship win, He went to the creek alone, and never came back. The story says he slipped on the rocks, hit his head, and drowned before anyone could find him. When his body was discovered, his basketball shoes were still beside the water. His death struck the school hard. The next season began with a moment of silence in his honor, and for a while, the gym seemed emptier, quieter, almost reverent. But soon, strange things began to happen. Players reported hearing the sound of dribbling late at night, when the gym was locked. Coaches arriving early in the morning found fresh footprints on the court, small and bare, as if a boy had been walking through. One janitor swore he saw a shape moving near the bleachers, a faint gray, and almost glowing in the dim light. When he turned to look, it was gone. Another said he felt a hand tap his shoulder, but when he spun around, the gym was empty. Over the years, the stories multiplied. Some said that if you stand at center court with a ball in hand and call out his name, the name that no one remembers now, the ball will be knocked away from you, as though someone invisible is challenging you to a game. Others said they saw the ghostly outline of a boy running the court, his form translucent, his movements fluid and fast. When the light hits just right, they claim you can see him. Shoot the ball soaring into the air and disappearing before it ever reaches the hoop. Even after the school built a new gym and moved most of its activities elsewhere, students who snuck in during dares came out, pale and trembling, insisting. Thea D. heard the steady bounce of a ball coming from nowhere. Some described hearing a faint whistle like coach calling a play. One student swore she heard the sound of someone catching their breath, the soft, tired panting of someone who had been running hard. The town of Monroe eventually sealed off the gym, claiming safety concerns. But those who live nearby say they can still hear the noises. Late at night, when the wind is calm and the streets are quiet, the rhythmic thump of a basketball drifts through the air, faint but distinct. It comes from inside the boarded-up building, echoing just like it did when games were still played there. Locals have come to call the ghost the dribbling boy today. Some say he is harmless, trapped in a place he loved most, reliving his glory days. Others think he is lonely, searching for the teammates who left him behind. Paranormal investigators who have visited the site claim to have recorded the sound of sneakers squeaking, the faint rustle of a jersey, and even a whisper that said, pass it, No matter how much time passes, the story doesn't fade. The gym remains a landmark, not just of Monreal's history, but of something deeper, something unseen. Those who walk near it at night say they can feel the pulse of it still, a heartbeat that never stopped. And if you listen closely, beyond the creaking wood and sighing wind, you might hear it too, the steady, patient rhythm of a basketball bouncing in the dark, guided by hands that have touched the earth in over 70 years. Griffin Middle School sits quietly in the heart of its namesake town, its red brick walls and tall windows carrying the kind of history that lingers long after the final bell. Generations of students have passed through its doors, yet the building feels alive in ways that are hard to explain. The creak of the old floors, the hum of aging lights, and the faint echo of voices seem to weave a presence of their own. But Ida as the science wing specifically the old labs, where something far more unusual stirs. Those who visit after hours say the air shifts the moment they step inside. The hallway grows colder, the silence sharper. Even in summer, when the Georgia heat presses against the windows, a sudden chill can sweep through the corridor near the labs. Teachers have complained of equipment moving overnight, glass beakers found tipped over, chalk left scrawled across the blackboard in looping, unfamiliar handwriting. Some have even reported hearing whispering between the empty desks, soft voices that seem to rise and fall at a conversation, but never quite clear enough to understand. The story that explains these strange happenings reaches back to the 1950s, when Griffin Middle School was still new and its science program was the pride of the district. One of the students, a bright girl with a fascination for chemistry, spent hours experimenting after class. She dreamed of becoming a scientist, often staying late to mix compounds and test reactions while her teacher graded papers nearby. One afternoon, the story goes, she was working alone. The teacher had stepped out for a moment, leaving her with a burner flame and several bottles of volatile chemicals. No one knows exactly what went wrong, perhaps a simple miscalculation, or perhaps an unfortunate mixture that produced an unexpected reaction. But witnesses from nearby classrooms later recalled hearing a sudden, sharp explosion followed by shattering glass. Smoke poured out from under the lab door, and when staff rushed in, the room was filled with thick fumes and fire. By the time they managed to pull her from the wreckage, it was too late. The tragedy left a deep mark on the school. The damaged lab was sealed off for repairs, but teachers said the smell of smoke and chemicals never completely left the air. When the room was finally reopened, students began to complain of strange sensations and the feeling of being watched, cold drafts with no source, and the faint sound of tapping glass when no one was near the counters. Over time, the legend of the A Science Lab gossip began to take shape. One custodian who worked the night shift during the 1970s swore he saw a small figure standing near the lab sink after hours. She was surrounded by a dim blue light, her hair tied back neatly, wearing an outdated uniform blouse. He said she looked up at him for a moment, as if curious, before fading into the darkness. He refused to clean that section of the building again. In later years, teachers began noticing odd occurrences during class. Chalk would move by itself, spelling partial equations or chemical formulas no one had written. A beaker might slide several inches across the table, or a test tube would roll to the floor without reason. One teacher even claimed that during a demonstration, the flame on her Bunsen burner flared high without being adjusted, forcing her to step back. When she turned to the board, she found a faint message written in chalk. Be careful. Students, too, have shared their experiences. Some claim to have heard faint humming coming from the lab when Ida S. empty, a soft tune like a girl lost in thought. Others say Thea V felt a hand brush against their sleeve or tug lightly at their backpack strap, only to turn around and find no one there. The most chilling stories come from those who linger after dark, young pranksters who dare each other to walk to the hall with the lights off. Many don't make it far. They describe the temperature dropping sharply, the sound of glass clinking in the distance, and a sudden whisper right beside their ear, too close to be imagined. A few years ago, a paranormal research group visited the school with permission from the district. They set up cameras and recording devices in the old science wing, focusing on the area where the accident occurred. Around midnight, one of the motion sensors was triggered. When the investigators reviewed the footage, they found that several glass beakers on a table began to move, one tipping over without any visible cause. The sound captured on the audio was faint but unmistakable, the laughter of a young girl, echoing briefly before the room fell silent again. Despite the ghost stories, those who believe in her presence describe her as malicious. They say she is curious, playful, maybe even protective. Teachers who have spent decades in the building sometimes leave small notes or flowers on the counter by the sink, a quiet tribute to the student who never got to finish her experiment. On certain days, they say, the air grows warmer for just a moment, and a faint scent of something chemical yet sweet lingers, as though she is saying thank you. The administration keeps the tales quiet, not wanting to fuel rumors among students, but everyone who works there knows about the old science lab. The new teachers learn soon enough when they find their chalk tray mysteriously rearranged or their papers rustling without a breeze. The veteran staff simply nod and smile, whispering, "She is still curious day." To this day, Griffin Middle School stands as a place where the past and present seem to overlap. The laughter of students echoes through the halls each morning, mingling with something older, softer, and unseen. And sometimes, in the stillness between classes, a faint tap of glass, or a quiet whisper, reminds everyone that the girl who loved science never truly left her lab, forever experimenting, and forever just out of reach. Athens High School stands tall in the heart of the city, its grand Ave sectionate, an arched window speaking of another era. Built in the early 1900s, it was once the pride of the community, a place where generations of young minds learned, dreamed, and grew. Yet as the years passed and new buildings rose around it, the old high school became something else entirely, a place where the past never seemed to let go. Even before the last classes moved out and the structure became a historical landmark, whispers of strange happenings echoed through the halls. Teachers and janitors who stayed late spoke of flickering lights in rooms that had been locked for decades. Shadows appeared at the edge of vision, figures that moved across the windows, though no one stood inside. When the night deepened and the air grew still, the faint sound of footsteps could be heard climbing the stairwells, pausing on each landing as though someone unseen was making their rounds. The stories all point back to the 1920s, when tragedy struck the school more than once. In those early years, a fire broke out in one of the older wings. The cause was never officially confirmed. Some said it was faulty wiring. Others whispered it began in the chemistry lab. A few students and one teacher were trapped on the upper floor. The fire was quickly contained, but the smoke claimed several lives before help arrived. The incident left the town grieving, and the building was closed for repairs. When it reopened, the classrooms looked new again, but something beneath the surface had changed. 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 But something beneath the surface had. Soon after, students began to report odd sensations. They would enter a room and feel an unnatural coldness, as though someone had opened a door to winter air. Books would fall from shelves without reason. Lights would flicker, even when the wiring had just been replaced. At first, these were dismissed as the nerves of children remembering the fire. But over time, the activity became harder to ignore. Teachers began to experience it too. One reported that while grading papers late one evening, she heard the unmistakable sound of chalk scraping across a blackboard. When she turned, words had begun to form. "We are still here." The chalk lay untouched on the tray, rolling slightly back and forth as if recently moved. Another teacher said she found desks arranged in a perfect circle when she arrived one morning, though she had left them in neat rows the night before. The janitors who cleaned the building after dark spoke of voices in the stairwells, soft, distant, as if from another time. Sometimes, they said, laughter would echo faintly down the hall, followed by the light tapping of shoes running across the floor. One man swore he heard a bell ring in the middle of the night, followed by the sound of chairs scraping and students standing, as though an invisible class had just been dismissed. The music room, however, remains the most haunted part of Athens High School. Its walls lined with soundproof panels that long ago began to peel away. Inside rests an old, upright piano, the same one used by the students a century ago. Its wood is cracked, its keys yellowed and uneven, but the instrument remains remarkably intact. Visitors and caretakers claim that at certain times of night, particularly in late autumn, a melody drifts from that room, slow, delicate, mournful. Particularly in late autumn, a melody drifts from that room, slow, delicate, mournful. The tune is said to be a waltz once taught by a beloved music teacher who perished in the 1920s fire. The tune is said to be a waltz once taught by a beloved music teacher who perished in the 1920s fire. She was known for her kindness and her gift for playing by ear. She was known for her kindness and her gift for playing by ear. In the weeks after her death, her students would gather in the music room, try and play her favorite song, but no one could ever get it quite right. In the weeks after her death, her students would gather in the music room, try and play her favorite song, but no one could ever get it quite right. The melody haunts them still, a bittersweet reminder of what was lost. Decades later, people still hear it, a perfectly played, the same note she loved, echoing to the corridors long after the last student is gone. One particularly chilling account comes from a group of preservation workers who were restoring the building in the early 2000s. They were working late one evening when the lights flickered and went out. In the dark, they heard music coming from down the hall, a faint but unmistakable. One man, curious and a little unnerved, followed the sound to the music room. Through the glass window, he saw a figure seated at the piano, a woman in an old-fashioned dress, her posture graceful, her fingers moving gently over the keys. The melody filled the air, hauntingly beautiful. He stood frozen, listening, until she stopped suddenly and turned toward him. Her face was pale, her eyes distant, and then, in the blink of an eye, she vanished. After that night, none of the workers would stay past sunset. The incident became part of the Skulla-esque growing legend, a story that visitors whisper about on guided tours. They say if you stand outside the music room long enough, you might hear the faintest notes of that same song, drifting like smoke through the stillness. Some even claim to see a shadow move across the window, as though the pianist still practices there, keeping time with memories of the past. Even the playground, now overgrown and quiet, carries traces of the unexplained. Locals walking nearby at dusk have seen silhouettes in the windows, the outlines of students standing shoulder to shoulder, looking out at the field, as though waiting for a bell that will never ring again. Today, Athens High School remains a proud landmark of history, preserved as part of the town's heritage. But for those who felt the cold spots in the hallways, heard the whisper of long-gone footsteps, or caught a glimpse of a figure behind a curtain, there is no question that the building still hums with unseen life. Ida S. said that the children who lost their lives so young still walk the halls beside her. South Georgia Academy in Valdosta stands as a proud yet somber reminder of the region's educational past. Generations of students once filled those seats, laughing, rehearsing plays, and gathering for ceremonies. But beneath the layers of paint and dust lies a story that few are willing to talk about openly, a story of fire, loss, and the echoes that still linger in the darkness. The year was 1943, a time when the school bustled with youthful energy. The auditorium had just been refurbished, and a group of students was preparing for a spring performance, a patriotic play meant to boost morale during the war years. Parents and teachers filled the seats, and the smell of fresh paint still hung faintly in the air. As the curtain rose and the lights flared bright, no one could have imagined the tragedy about to unfold. Accounts from survivors describe how the fire began backstage. Some said it was caused by a faulty spotlight wire. Others whisper it was a spark from a student's cigarette, carelessly dropped among the heavy drapes. Within moments, smoke billowed upward, and flames began to crawl across the back wall. Panic spread quickly. The exits, narrow and few, became choked with frightened students. Teachers tried desperately to guide them out, but the fire spread too fast. When firefighters finally broke through the main doors, the auditorium was engulfed. Several students and one teacher never made it out. Their names were etched on a memorial plaque that still stands near the old building, though time has dulled the letters. In the decade that followed, the school rebuilt, but no one could shake the feeling that something had stayed behind. The new auditorium was constructed over the same foundation, using much of the old frame that survived the flames. From the beginning, staff noticed peculiar disturbances. Curtains swayed gently even when the air was still. The stage lights flickered despite modern wiring. And during after-hours inspections, custodians reported hearing the faint rustle of movement and the creak of wooden seats, the shuffle of footsteps, and the unmistakable sound of applause echoing through an empty room. One night in the late 1950s, a drama teacher staying late to grade papers heard music drifting from the auditorium. Thinking one of her students had returned to practice, she went to investigate. When she opened the door, the room was dimly lit, the curtains moving slightly. On the stage, she saw faint silhouettes, outlines of students standing in formation, as though rehearsing a scene. Their uniforms were old-fashioned, the style worn decades earlier. Before she could speak, the figures began to fade, and the air grew heavy with the scent of smoke. She fled the building, trembling, and refused to enter the auditorium again. Since then, countless witnesses have reported similar experiences. Maintenance crews have heard phantom applause after the building closes for the night. Visitors attending modern performances sometimes glance toward the balcony and see shadowy figures seated there, unmoving and silent, dressed in vintage uniforms. On certain nights, when the house lights dim and the audience quiets, a chill sweeps through the room as if unseen guests have joined to watch. Students say that during rehearsals, props occasionally move by themselves. One young actress once left her costume neatly folded backstage, only to find it hanging from the rack the next morning, as though someone had prepared it for her. Another claimed she heard whispering just behind the curtain, voices reciting lines from a long-forgotten play. The stagehands, nervous but curious, have joked about it, the old cast coming back for one more performance. In the early 1980s, a group of local historians and paranormal researchers received permission to spend a night in the auditorium. They brought cameras, recorders, and temperature sensors, determined to document what they called the theater phenomenon A. Shortly after midnight, the temperature dropped nearly 10 degrees. Their recorders captured faint clapping and the sound of a bell, the same kind once used to signal intermission. On one camera, a faint mist appeared near the center aisle, taking the vague shape of a person standing motionless before disappearing completely. Despite the eerie reports, there is a strange piece to hauntings. No one has ever described hostility or malice. The spirits seem to linger not out of anger, but out of longing and a desire to finish a performance that was cut short. Some say the phantom students are still waiting for their curtain call, still listening for the teacher who once guided them through every line. The energy in the room, witnesses say, feels more wistful than frightening, as if the echoes of laughter and applause have simply refused to fade away. Today, South Georgia Academy continues to function as a proud part of Valdosta's history. The auditorium is used occasionally for small events, though many avoid staying there alone after dark. The school has made no effort to hide its haunted reputation. In fact, the stories have become part of its identity. Each year, a candlelight vigil is held in memory of those lost in the 1940s fire. Students gather on the steps, holding candles, their reflections flickering in the glass doors. And as they stand in silence, some claim they hear the faint rustle of curtains inside, as though unseen hands are preparing for a show. Visitors who linger after the vigil often describe a final, quiet moment, the sound of gentle clapping echoing faintly from within the auditorium, a soft acknowledgement from those long gone. No one ever finds the source, and no one ever stays long enough to see if the curtain moves again. Yet year after year, the stories return, carried in whispers by students and teachers alike. They say that in the old auditorium, the past never truly left the stage. The students who perished in the fire still gather beneath the dim lights, taking their seats that no longer exist, waiting patiently for a performance that never ended. Rome City School, nestled in the heart of its namesake town, has stood for over a century as a landmark of education and history. Built in the early 1900s, its brick walls and tall windows have witnessed generations of students bustling through hallways, the ringing of bells marking the passage of another school day. But beneath its familiar FAA Section A lies a layer of history few ever forget, a presence that has lingered long after the last class dismissed. Staff and visitors alike have reported strange occurrences that cannot be explained by drafts or faulty wiring. Doors slam shut with sudden force, even when there's no wind. Books tumble from shelves in classrooms where no one has been present. Chalk scrawls appear across blackboards, forming words or partial sentences that vanish almost as soon as they are noticed. The air often feels heavy, charged with a sense that someone or something is moving just out of sight. The most persistent legend at Rome City School centers around a boy whose life ended tragically during a school play in the 1930s. He was a bright, enthusiastic student, known for his humor and skill at working behind the scenes. During one performance, he was helping set up props on the balcony above the stage when, in a moment of misstep, he fell. The accident was sudden and shocking, leaving the audience and cast in stunned silence. Despite the grief and years that followed, the boy's presence never fully left the building. Teachers recount experiences that suggest the boy remains part of the school in some spectral way. One evening, a drama teacher staying late heard the faint sound of footsteps on the stage. Thinking a student had returned to rehearse, she went to investigate, only to find the auditorium empty. Later, she discovered that several props had been repositioned, a chair slightly shifted, a backdrop pulled taut in a way she hadn't until he left it. She recalls a cold draft that seemed to pass directly through her, leaving goosebumps in its wake. Custodians working night shifts frequently mention similar phenomena. Doors swing open on their own, then slam shut moments later. Hallways echo with footsteps, pacing back and forth as though an invisible student is making rounds. One night, a janitor claimed he saw the faint outline of a boy moving behind the curtains on stage, adjusting props with careful precision. He tried calling out, but the figure disappeared before he could get close. The next morning, the props were found in exactly the same positions he had witnessed the night before. Students, too, have experienced the boy's ghostly presence. Some describe hearing whispers behind them when they are alone in the hallways. Others have reported seeing a shadow dart across the edges of their vision, vanishing when they turn to look directly. In the auditorium, particularly during rehearsal times or after hours, many have felt an unseen hand adjusting set pieces or nudge chairs. Some claim to have heard the soft creak of footsteps pacing the stage before a play begins, though no one is present. Perhaps the most chilling encounters happen in the auditorium itself. Visitors describe a sensation of being watched from above, a sense that unseen eyes follow every movement. Sometimes, the curtains sway as if stirred by invisible hands, and faint giggles or whispers echo from the stage wings. Once, during a photography club project, a group of students set up cameras to capture the auditorium in low light. When they reviewed the footage, a shadowy figure was visible moving behind the stage curtain, a small, agile, and ghostly vanishing whenever they tried to focus directly on it. The boy's presence is not described as menacing. Witnesses often say he seems curious, playful, and strangely meticulous, moving props as though preparing for a performance that never ended. Some have left notes on stage or small offerings near the balcony where he fell, hoping to honor the memory of a student still tethered to the school. Teachers report that the air sometimes feels lighter afterward, as if the boy has acknowledged their gesture before slipping quietly back into the shadows. Historical records show that after the accident, the school community worked tirelessly to remember him. Plays were dedicated in his honor, and a small plaque in the auditorium commemorated his contributions behind the scenes. Over time, new students and staff arrived, many unaware of the story, yet the phenomena continued. Ida S. as though the boy's spirit had become part of the building itself, a quiet, lingering presence intertwined with the floors, walls, and stage. Even during ordinary school hours, echoes of the past persist. A book might fall without explanation. Chalk marks might appear on the board where no lesson was taught. Some say the boy can be glimpsed fleetingly near the balcony or backstage, adjusting props, straightening curtains, or simply waiting for a performance to resume. He has become a guardian of the auditorium in his own spectral way, maintaining the order and tradition of a place he once loved in life. Visitors who linger near the stage after hours sometimes feel a brush of air, the faint sound of footsteps, or a soft presence at their side. The sensation is often fleeting but undeniable, a reminder that the past remains close. In the old auditorium of Rome City School, where history and memory entwine, the boy continues to prepare for the plays that will never occur, ensuring that the heart of the school beats quietly, carried by a spirit that refuses to leave. The legend endures, passed down by teachers, students, and local residents. Those who enter the auditorium at night speak of a feeling that the boy is still present, still attentive, and still a part of the school he loved. Doors slam, books tumble, and chalk appears on blackboards, each occurrence a subtle echo of his restless presence. In the shadows of Rome City School, the past never truly leaves. The boy who fell from the balcony continues to wait, preparing the stage for a performance that has lasted far beyond his years. Savannah High School has stood as a landmark in its city for over a century, its sprawling campus a mix of old brick wings and newer additions. While most of the school functions as a place of learning, it is the abandoned old wing that draws whispers, stories, and cautious curiosity. The hallways of this section are dark and narrow, the air heavy with dust and history. Though the classrooms have been empty for decades, visitors and staff alike insist that they are not entirely alone when they step inside. Teachers who have worked at Savannah High report strange phenomena that cannot be explained. Lights flicker without cause, sometimes plunging a corridor into sudden darkness, only to flare back on moments later. Doors creak and slam shut despite being locked. Lockers open and close as if pushed by unseen hands, leaving behind a faint metallic echo of hinges. The air often feels heavier in the old wing, as if it holds the weight of countless footsteps long since passed. The most common reports center around the hallways themselves. Students and teachers alike describe hearing soft whispers in spaces that should be silent. Sometimes these voices are indistinct, a murmur that seems to ebb and flow with no source. Other times, they are nearly clear, echoing the tones of teachers instructing classes or students answering questions. Those who have walked these corridors alone often feel eyes upon them, though whenever they turn, nothing is there. Shadowy figures are another recurring phenomenon. Students on evening detention or late-night study sessions say they have glimpsed shapes moving along the walls, disappearing when approached. These figures appear human but indistinct, like smoke caught in a narrow beam of light. Many describe them as moving deliberately, pausing at classroom doors or looking down hallways as though attending a lesson from decades ago. There are reports of figures standing silently by chalkboards, their outlines barely visible, but their presence unmistakable. The history of the old wing helps explain why these spirits might linger. Built in the early 1900s, this section of Savannah High was once filled with students and teachers bustling through daily lessons. Over time, the building was modernized, and the old classrooms were abandoned as newer wings were added. But in its prime, the wing saw countless students and generations who learned, laughed, and sometimes suffered within its walls. Tragedy also left its mark. There were accidents, illnesses, and untimely deaths, all leaving echoes of lives cut short in the very rooms they occupied. Some of the most chilling reports involve the classrooms themselves. Desks sometimes slide across the floors on their own, moving into perfect rows or clusters as if an unseen hand is arranging them for a lesson. Chalk marks appear on blackboards overnight, sometimes forming partial equations or faint reminders of lessons long forgotten. Teachers have entered these rooms after hours to find textbooks stacked neatly on shelves, only to discover later that they had been disordered the night before. The rooms feel as if they are frozen in time, caught between past and present. Even the stairwells hold strange occurrences. Steps creak and echo as though someone is pacing, yet when staff ascend or descend to investigate, the stairs are empty. Some have described a sudden chill, as if a cold breeze passes by, even when all windows are closed. Others claim to have glimpsed shadowy shapes peering down from upper landings, vanishing as soon as they are noticed. Despite the unsettling experiences, those who encounter the old wing's ghosts often speak of a quiet presence rather than malice. The figures appear to be reenacting routines, reliving the days when the school was filled with energy. One student who dared to explore during a school project reported seeing a shadow sit at a desk, taking notes on an invisible paper. Another described a figure walking to the front of the room, gesturing as if teaching, before fading silently into the darkness. Paranormal enthusiasts who have investigated Savannah High as Old Wing report evidence that supports these accounts. Motion-activated cameras have captured fleeting shadows in empty hallways, Audio recorders pick up soft voices whispering just beyond comprehension. Temperature sensors detect sudden drops in cold spots near specific classrooms, as though the air itself remembers the presence of former students. Even photographs taken in the wing sometimes show faint outlines of figures that were not visible to the naked eye. The building continues to function around the abandoned wing, yet the stories never fade. New teachers are warned about the wing's history, and students pass down tales of shadowy figures moving silently through the halls. For those brave enough to linger after hours, there is a palpable feeling that the past remains alive. Every whisper, flicker of light, and sliding desk is a reminder that the old wing holds more than just memories, it holds echoes of the lives that once filled it. Visitors and staff alike agree that the spirits are never overtly hostile. They move quietly, sometimes curious, sometimes playful, but always just out of reach. Many believe they are students and teachers who are trapped in a moment of time, endlessly attending classes that ceased long ago. The old wing of Savannah High School stands as a bridge between past and present, a place where history is tangible and the line between life and memory grows thin. In the quiet moments, when the building is still and the corridors are empty, one might hear the soft rustle of footsteps, see the flicker of a shadow, or feel a chill sweep past. It is a school that never truly sleeps, where lessons from nearly a century ago still echo in whispers, and the students who once filled the hallways continue to walk them, forever present yet just beyond reach. Marietta Elementary in the heart of Marietta is a building steeped in decades of history, its red brick walls and tall windows witnessing generations of children learning, playing, and growing. Built in the early 20th century, it has been the starting point for countless journeys. Yet behind its cheerful classrooms and playgrounds, there is a story that lingers, one of a presence that refuses to leave. For those who have spent time in the older parts of school, it is clear that Marietta Elementary is not entirely empty, even after the final bell rings. The spirit said to haunt the school is that of a former principal, a man whose dedication and education defined his life. He served the school tirelessly through the 1940s and into the early 1950s, walking the halls daily, overseeing lessons, and ensuring that every student met his high standards. Known for his firm but fair demeanor, he left a lasting impression on both teachers and students. When he passed suddenly in the 1950s, grief washed over the school community. However, it seemed he did not entirely leave the building he had loved so much. Teachers have long reported unusual occurrences in classrooms and hallways, particularly in the older wing of the school. One of the most common phenomena is chalk moving across blackboards on its own. Sometimes the marks form indecipherable scratches. Other times, they seem almost purposeful, leaving shapes or partial words as if someone is attempting to communicate. One teacher recalls entering her classroom one morning to find a lesson partially written on the board, formulas and sentences she had never prepared. The chalk was still warm, though no one had been in the room overnight. Furniture movement is another hallmark of the haunting. Chairs have been found sliding across the floors, sometimes arranged in neat rows, or at other times pushed into odd positions that defy logic. Teachers have reported that desks will occasionally shift slightly during class, as if guided by unseen hands. Custodians working late have described hearing the faint scrape of wood on tile in otherwise empty rooms, pausing as though someone were moving carefully around the room. The feeling is often accompanied by a sudden chill, an icy draft that seems to sweep through specific corners of the building. The hallways themselves seem alive with unseen footsteps. Visitors and staff alike have heard pacing, slow and deliberate, echoing from one end of the corridor to the other. Some have attempted to follow the sounds, only to find empty halls and the silence of an abandoned building. Others have claimed to feel a presence at their side, a cold brush of air, a subtle pressure, as though someone is walking with them, unseen but attentive. One of the most chilling reports involved the old Principal's office, located near the center of the older wing. Though the office has long been repurposed as storage, those who have entered report an oppressive weight in the room, a sensation of being observed. Lights sometimes flicker when no one is touching the switch, and books or papers on the desk will be found slightly out of place. Teachers who have dared to spend time in the office after hours have described hearing the faint sound of someone walking back and forth, pausing occasionally as if reviewing the DIAS lessons. Students, particularly during after-school activities or late-night events, have seen fleeting shadows in the hallways. One group of children attending a reading program claimed to see a dark silhouette moving quickly past the doorway, vanishing before anyone could identify it. Another student swore he saw the shadow of a man standing at the front of an empty classroom, watching silently before disappearing. Though these encounters are brief, they leave a lasting impression, and many children refuse to walk to the older wing alone. Janitors and maintenance staff have also witnessed disturbances that suggest the Principala's presence extends beyond mere echoes. Cleaning crews have reported lights turning off and on unexpectedly, papers shifting on desks, and occasional, inexplicable thumps from the ceiling. Some have even caught glimpses of figure out of the corner of their eye a man in an old-fashioned suit, moving with careful precision, disappearing whenever they turn to look directly. Despite the unsettling nature of these events, those who have encountered the spirit often describe him as disciplined rather than hostile. He seems attentive, perhaps ensuring that the school is maintained in order or watching over the students and staff he once guided. Many teachers speak of a feeling that the principal is present when work is being done diligently, and that the disturbances are his way of maintaining the structure he valued so deeply. The chalk marks, sliding chairs, and flickering lights are seen less as threats, and more as reminders that he is still here in his school, keeping a quiet watch. Marietta Elementary continues to function as a modern school, yet the older wing remains a place where history and memory intertwine. Staff and students carry the stories of the past with them, passing down tales of the principal who never truly left. The legend persists, supported by unexplained phenomena and the weight of decades of eyewitness accounts. Those who enter the wing after hours often speak of the same sensations, sudden cold spots, moving objects, and a presence that is both palpable and elusive. In the quiet moments of the school day, when the chatter of children fades and the hallways are still, one might hear faint footsteps, chalk scraping against a blackboard, or the subtle movement of a chair across the floor. Marietta Elementary holds within it the spirit of a man dedicated to education, a presence that has lingered long after his passing. The former principal remains a silent guardian, ensuring that the lessons, discipline, and care that define his life continue to echo through the hallways of the school he loved. Dalton High School in the heart of the city has long been a center of learning, its classrooms and hallways filled with generations of students. Yet among its many rooms, none draws as much whispered attention as the old science lab. For decades, this laboratory has been the site of unusual occurrences, experiences that leave students, teachers, and even janitors questioning what is real and what belongs to the unseen. The room is lined with glass cabinets, shelves full of chemicals, and long counters where generations of experiments have been conducted. But for many, it is not the past experiments that linger, but the presence of something A or someone A who never left. Reports of strange activity in the lab are common. Bunsen burners ignite on their own, their small flames flickering in the dim light, as though someone had turned the gas knob. Glass slides fall from racks without reason, shattering quietly on the counter or floor. Sometimes, visitors describe a sudden, unmistakable smell of chemicals, ammonia, sulfur, and other compounds, lingering in the air, even when the room has been locked and no class has been in session for hours. Teachers and students alike have come to recognize these phenomena as signatures of the lab's most famous resident, the spirit of a student who died during an experiment decades ago. A young, brilliant student had a particular fascination with chemistry. The tragedy occurred in the early 1950s. A young, brilliant student had a particular fascination with chemistry. Known for his curiosity and meticulous nature, he would spend hours after class in the lab, perfecting experiments and exploring chemical reactions far beyond the scope of the standard curriculum. One afternoon, while attempting a new compound, something went terribly wrong. A small explosion occurred, sending shards of glass flying and causing a reaction that the boy could not control. Despite immediate aid from teachers, the accident proved fatal. The school community was devastated, and the science lab where he met his end became a place remembered with both pride for his intelligence and sorrow for his untimely death. From that day forward, the lab seemed to retain traces of the boy's presence. Teachers report that the disturbances are never malevolent. Bunsen burners flare up, glass moves, and chemicals appear as if the student is merely continuing his experiments. One teacher who stayed late preparing for a chemistry demonstration described the unsettling experience of walking into a lab to find a lit burner waiting on the counter, the flame steady and small, as though someone had just ignited it and stepped away. Though she was initially frightened, she found herself observing the scene with a sense of respect, as if honoring a life still present in some form. Custodians and maintenance staff have also encountered the unusual occurrences. One janitor recalled entering the lab during a routine inspection and noticing several glass slides scattered across the counters. When he bent to pick them up, he heard the faint clinking of additional slides falling, though no one else was in the room. A subtle scent of chemicals hung in the air, sharp and metallic. He described it as a fleeting but distinct sensation, as if the student were pacing quietly around the lab, checking his work and returning to finish what had been interrupted decades earlier. Students report similar experiences. Some have seen shadows flit across the countertops or glimpsed a faint outline of a figure moving near the shelves. Others have heard the faint sound of glass tapping against a counter or the softness of gas escaping from a Bunsen burner, only to find the room empty. Some have seen shadows flit across the countertops or glimpsed a faint outline of a figure moving near the shelves, only to find the room empty. Some have heard the faint sound of glass tapping against a counter or the softness of gas escaping from a Bunsen burner, only to find the room empty. Some have seen shadows flit across the countertops or glimpsed a faint outline of a figure moving near the shelves, only to find the room empty. Some have heard the faint sound of glass tapping against a counter or the softness of gas escaping from a Bunsen burner, only to find the room empty. Many have heard the faint sound of glass tapping against a counter or the softness of gas escaping from a Bunsen burner, only to find the room empty. Some have seen shadows flit across the countertops or glimpsed a faint outline of a figure moving near the shelves, only to find the room empty. Students report similar experiences. Many have heard the faint sound of glass tapping against a counter or the softness of gas escaping from a Bunsen burner, only to find the room empty. Some have seen shadows flit across the countertops or glimpsed a faint outline of a figure moving near the shelves, only to find the room empty. Others have heard the faint sound of glass tapping against a counter or the softness of gas escaping from a Bunsen burner, only to find the room empty. Only to find the room empty. Some have seen shadows flit across the countertops or glimpsed a faint outline of a figure moving near the shelves, only to find the room empty. Some have heard the faint sound of glass tapping against a counter or the softness of gas escaping from a Bunsen burner, only to find the room empty. Some have seen shadows flit across the countertops or glimpsed a faint outline of a figure moving near the shelves, only to find the room empty. Some have heard the faint sound of glass tapping against a counter or the softness of gas escaping from a Bunsen burner, only to find the room empty. One student described seeing a hand reach out toward a beaker as if to adjust it, only for the movement to vanish the moment he focused his gaze directly. Paranormal investigators who have visited Dalton High Science Lab often remark on the consistency of the phenomena. Cameras sometimes capture unexplained flashes of movement or misty outlines near benches. Audio recorders pick up faint clinks, rustling sounds, and occasional hissing or bubbling, even when no equipment is in use. Sensors frequently detect temperature drops or sudden changes in air pressure near specific counters where the student was known to work. Though eerie, none of these experiences convey a sense of threat. Instead, they suggest curiosity, a presence that is endlessly engaged in pursuit of knowledge. Even teachers who have worked in the lab for decades say that the spirit seems to have a routine, repeating the final moments of Sedena-esque experiments over and over. Occasionally, a slide will fall to the floor in the same way it did during the accident, or a burner will ignite precisely where he once stood. The disturbances are methodical and familiar, almost like the lab itself is remembering the past. Those who understand the story approach the room with care and respect. acknowledging that they are sharing space with a student who loved his work and never fully left it behind. Despite its haunted reputation, the science lab continues to be a place of learning and discovery. Students who spend time there often report that the presence inspires them, as if the curiosity of the past is encouraging them to explore and experiment safely. Teachers leave notes and reminders for students on the counters, sometimes feeling, afterward, that an unseen hand has nudged them into place or aligned them neatly. The phenomena have become a quiet, enduring part of the school-esque character A, a reminder that knowledge, once sought with passion, leaves an imprint far beyond the limits of life. Dalton High Science Lab remains a testament to both tragedy and curiosity. The Bunsen burners, falling glass slides, and fleeting scent of chemicals serve as subtle reminders of a student who once walked those aisles, driven by curiosity and an unquenchable thirst for understanding. His spirit is said to linger, revisiting the experiments that defined him, endlessly curious and forever part of the laboratory he loved. The lab, in turn, continues to carry his presence a place where the past is tangible, and the pursuit of knowledge transcends the boundaries between life and death. Augusta Academy, located in the heart of its city, has long been a symbol of academic pride and community spirit. Its brick walls and tall windows have watched generations of students pass through its halls, carrying dreams, ambitions, and the simple joys of youth. But few parts of the school carry the weight of memory quite like the old gymnasium. For decades, this space was a heartbeat of student life, filled with the squeak of sneakers, the thump of basketballs, and the roar of cheering crowds. Yet beneath those echoes lies a darker, more tragic history, a one that continues to manifest in ways both eerie and inexplicable. The story dates back to the early 1940s. Augusta Academia's gymnasium had just been renovated and was packed with students and families for a regional basketball championship. The atmosphere was electric, with cheers reverberating off the wooden floors and polished bleachers. But in an instant, disaster struck. A fire, believed to have been caused by faulty electrical wiring, swept through the gym. Panic erupted as smoke and flames consumed the space. Despite the heroic efforts of teachers and staff, several students and a coach lost their lives, leaving the community devastated. The tragedy was felt deeply, and though the gym was rebuilt, the memory of that day never faded. Since then, countless reports have emerged of strange and unexplainable activity within the old gym. Teachers and custodians who enter after hours often describe hearing the unmistakable sound of basketballs bouncing across the polished wooden floor, though no one is there. The rhythmic thump of sneakers echoes in perfect cadence, as if an entire team is running plays unseen. Some have reported hearing the squeak of shoes, the whistle of referees, and even a murmur of crowd, all in a gym that has been empty for decades. One custodian recalls an experience from the late 1970s. He had been cleaning the gym after hours, preparing for the next IS practice. As he mopped the floor, he heard the familiar dribble of a basketball. Looking around, he saw no one. Then, the ball rolled back as if waiting for someone to play. The gym felt charged, alive with energy from a game that existed only in memory. Shaken but intrigued, he left the gym quietly, never questioning what he'd seen again. Students who dare to visit the gym after hours have had similar experiences. Groups sneaking in for dares often report feeling the temperature drop suddenly, accompanied by the faint scent of sweat and varnish, as if the gym were still being used. Shadows flit across the floor, tall and slender, moving with agility and purpose. Some claim to see entire teams running plays, the outlines of players moving past bleachers, pivoting, dribbling, and shooting. The movements are precise, echoing the techniques taught decades ago, as though the spirits are practicing for matches that will never be played. Even equipment seems affected. Basketballs have been observed bouncing, as if guided by invisible hands. Nets sway when no one touches them. Scoreboards flicker with lights turning on and off in no discernible pattern. Whistles sound from nowhere, piercing the silence in sudden bursts, startling anyone present. While the activity can be unnerving, there is a distinct sense of playfulness. Those who encounter the phenomena describe the spirits as energetic and determined, performing games with intensity that recalls the joy of youth rather than malice. Some have even reported interactive experiences. A teacher once set a basketball on the court and stepped back, watching. Moments later, the ball began to bounce by itself, moving toward the hoop in a perfect arc before dropping silently through the net. Silently through the net. The teacher stepped forward to retrieve it, only to have it bounce again, as if inviting him to play along. Others describe hearing faint calls of encouragement or the sound of someone shouting a play, but no voice can be traced to a living source. The Jaima-S haunted reputation has grown over the years. Paranormal investigators have recorded mysterious audio of bouncing balls, whistles, and ghostly cheers. Cameras occasionally capture faint, translucent figures darting across the court. Temperature sensors detect sudden drops in specific areas, particularly near the center court and along the sidelines. Footage sometimes shows shadows running in patterns too precise to be coincidental, suggesting the reenactment of actual plays performed decades ago. Despite the tragedy that occurred, there is an undeniable sense of nostalgia and reverence associated with these hauntings. Visitors report that the spirits do not harm or threaten. Instead, they seem bound to memory of the games they loved, reliving moments of excitement and camaraderie that were cut short in life. Teachers and students who witness these events often describe a feeling of being watched by invisible athletes, present yet untouchable, sharing their energy and their love of the game. The gymnasium of Augusta Academy remains a landmark of both achievement and sorrow. Its polished floors, now echoing with more than just footsteps, are a testament to lives lost and memories preserved. The bouncing basketballs, the flickering scoreboard, and the silhouettes of players moving across the court serve as a reminder that some moments, especially those filled with passion and purpose, refuse to be forgotten. In the quiet hours, when the school is empty, one might hear the rhythmic dribble of a basketball, the squeak of sneakers pivoting, or the whistle that signals an invisible timeout. Shadows move across the court in patterns that mimic past games, always energetic, always precise, and always persistent. Always energetic, always precise, and always persistent. Where the joy of competition endures beyond the limits of life itself. Where the past lives on. Where the spirits of students and athletes replay their favorite moments. And where the joy of competition endures beyond the limits of life itself. Carrollton High School, located in the quiet town of Carrollton, is known for its long history and sprawling campus. But its old library holds a reputation that goes beyond books and study halls. Nestled near the banks of a winding river, the building has been a sanctuary for students seeking knowledge for decades. Its tall shelves, polished wooden tables, and high arched windows have witnessed generations of learning, laughter, and quiet study. Its tall shelves, polished wooden tables, and high arched windows have witnessed generations of learning, laughter, and quiet study. Yet in the oldest section of the library, a presence lingers, a spirit that has refused to leave, quietly observing the passage of time while repeating moments of a life tragically cut short. A bright and curious student, known for his love of reading and fascination with local history, often spent hours in the library. After school, he would cross the nearby river to explore the woods and banks, fascinated by nature and the quiet beauty of the water. One afternoon, however, a tragic accident occurred. The boy was swept into the river while exploring the edge, and despite frantic efforts to save him, he drowned. His sudden death shocked the community, and the library, where he had spent so much of his time, became forever linked with his memory. Not long after, students and staff began to notice unusual phenomena in the old section of the library. Books would slide from shelves on their own, sometimes floating momentarily before landing neatly on tables. Pages of open books would turn as if Samania-esque fingers were delicately flipping them, and bookmarks would appear in books that had been untouched for years. Visitors often report hearing whispers calling their names, soft and distant, just on the edge of comprehension. It is said that these are the calls of the boy, inviting students to join him in reading, lingering in a world he could no longer fully leave. Teachers recount experiences that are difficult to explain. One librarian, working late to organize old archives, described seeing a faint figure seated at a table, hunched over a book. The shape was translucent, the edges of his form wavering in the dim light. Though she initially thought she was imagining it, she noticed that the pages of the book in front of him were moving slowly, as if being read. The figure did not turn or speak, only sat silently, watching the room with an air of quiet patience. She left without disturbing him, later returned to find the book closed, as though he had finished reading while she was gone. Students also have their own stories. One teenager claimed that while searching for a reference book, he felt a light tap on his shoulder. When he turned, no one was there. Moments later, a book floated from a high shelf into his hands. Another student reported that the faint sound of footsteps echoed behind her as she walked down the narrow aisles, followed by whispers repeating her name. Turning to look, she glimpsed a shadowy figure sitting at a distant table, vanishing the moment she blinked. Many say these experiences are unsettling at first, but not malicious. The spirit seems more lonely, impatient, and angry, simply seeking the companionship of those who share his love for books. The spirit seems more lonely, impatient, and angry, simply seeking the companionship of those who share his love for books. Some say the ghost occasionally leaves subtle marks on the tables, pencil lines on paper, or a slight indentation in a chair, as if inviting someone to sit down. It is said that if a student takes a seat opposite him, the air grows colder. The air grows colder, and a faint, almost imperceptible sigh can be heard, like the quiet exhalation of a companion waiting for a friend. Maintenance staff have observed the haunting from another perspective. Lights flicker in the old library, even when the circuit is functioning properly. Shelves creak and groan as if adjusting themselves. Once, during an inventory of old books, several volumes rose slightly before falling back into place. Temperature readings in the room sometimes drop suddenly, concentrated near the corner table where the student is most often seen. Custodians who have spent long nights in the library speak of a feeling of being watched, though they never see the observer directly. The energy in the room is described as calm, almost studious, like someone continuing their daily routine beyond the boundaries of life. Paranormal investigators visiting Carrollton High's library have captured faint anomalies on camera, shadows flitting between stacks, books opening with no visible cause, and audio recordings of soft whispers. Sensors detect subtle temperature shifts, and some have documented floating dust particles moving in patterns that seem intentional. While eerie, there is a consensus among witnesses that the spirit is not harmful. His presence is that of a student who never finished his days on Earth, quietly existing among the shelves and tables he once adored. Despite the haunting, the library continues to function as a space for learning. Students who linger in the older wings sometimes sense a gentle presence nearby, and some describe an inexplicable calm, a feeling of companionship when reading alone. The ghost of Carrollton High S student has become part of the Libraria S history, a silent guardian and persistent companion for those who share his passion for knowledge. Even today, in the quiet hours of the school day, when the library is mostly empty, one might hear the soft rustle of pages turning, or feel a whisper brush past their ear. In the old corner, the faint outline of a boy remains, seated and reading, patiently waiting for someone to join him. Carrollton High School S Library is a place where past and present meet, a space where the love of learning endures, and a young student-esque spirit continues to turn the pages of time itself. Decatur Middle School, located in the heart of its town, has long been a hub for education and community events. Its classrooms are filled with the chatter of students, hallways echo with the rhythm of footsteps, and the gymnasium buzzes with energy during after-school activities. Yet among all its familiar spaces, the school's auditorium carries a presence far heavier than ordinary memory. Its red curtains, polished wooden floors, and tiered seating hide a tragic past, one that continued to echo in ways both eerie and unmistakable. The story of the haunting begins decades ago, in the early 1950s, during a school play. The auditorium, though beloved by students and faculty alike, was old and in need of repairs. On the night of a highly anticipated performance, the stage collapsed under the weight of performers and scenery. The accident was sudden and catastrophic, claiming the lives of several students. The community was devastated. Families mourned, the school grieved, and the auditorium, once a place of joy and creativity, became forever linked with loss and sorrow. Though the building was repaired and performances eventually resumed, many say the echoes of that tragic night never left. Teachers and staff who have spent time in the auditorium after hours often report experiences that cannot be explained by natural causes. Phantom applause can ring out, loud enough to fill the empty space, only to fade into silence moments later. The faint strains of a piano sometimes drift across the stage, though no one is seated at the instrument. Laughter, soft and fleeting, echoes through the hall, as though the students who perished are reliving moments of happiness before the disaster. The energy in the auditorium is palpable, a mix of remembrance, sorrow, and a lingering presence of those who never left. One evening, a drama teacher staying late to rehearse a new performance noticed shadows in the front rows of the auditorium. She initially thought it was a reflection of stage lights, but the shapes remained distinct and unmoving. Each shadow appeared human, seated as if waiting for a show to begin. The teacher described them as watching the empty stage with hollow eyes, attentive yet detached, their presence heavy with a sense of longing and unfinished business. She left quietly, the feeling of being observed lingering long after she stepped into the hallway. Students have reported similar encounters. Some say they have felt cold drafts sweep through the auditorium, sudden chills that follow them down the aisles. Others describe hearing footsteps pacing on the stage or the rustle of clothing, as if unseen performers are moving through the wings. During certain nights, when the building is empty and silent, the faint sounds of rehearsals seem to come alive. Soft voices reciting lines, the quiet clatter of props, and the measured rhythm of invisible feet on the wooden boards. Those who experience it often describe a mix of fear and fascination, as though the past is reaching out to remind them of lives lost long ago. The piano, in particular, seems to carry the strongest echoes of the tragedy. Witnesses have heard melodies, carefully played, drifting from the instrument even when the keys appear untouched. Some say the songs are familiar from old-school performances. Others describe them as hauntingly unfamiliar, like a composition never completed. Those who hear the music often feel as though someone is seated just beyond the edge of vision, guiding the tune with care and precision, replaying a moment that has been frozen in time. Shadowy figures are not limited to the front rows. Staff have noticed shapes gliding along the aisles or appearing from behind curtains. At times, a shadow will step onto the stage, linger for a moment, and then vanish, leaving behind a faint impression of presence. Custodians working late have recounted instances where the auditorium feels alive, its chairs arranged in neat rows, stage props move slightly, or the air charged with unseen energy. The sensations are never violent, but there's a quiet insistence, as if the spirits are recreating a performance that was cut short so many years ago. Paranormal investigators who have spent time in the auditorium have captured similar phenomena. Audio recordings reveal faint applause, soft footsteps, and whispers, while motion-sensitive cameras occasionally catch blurred silhouettes crossing the stage. Temperature sensors show sudden drops near the center and front rows, particularly where witnesses have reported seeing the shadowy figures. Lights sometimes flicker with no discernible cause, further reinforcing the sense that the space is inhabited by unseen presences. Despite the tragic history, the spirits of Decatur Midlia S. Auditorium are often described as playful yet persistent. They seem bound to the act of performance, endlessly attending shows that no longer exist, repeating rehearsals, or sitting quietly to watch imaginary plays. Teachers and students alike report that the presence is neither threatening nor malevolent. Rather, it is a reflection of lives interrupted, a replay of joy and creativity frozen in time. The energy is charged with both sorrow and nostalgia, a reminder of the vibrancy that once filled the room before tragedy struck. Even today, during empty evenings when the school is silent, the auditorium seems alive. Phantom applause, the soft strains of the piano, and faint laughter ripple through the hall. Shadowy figures sit in the front rows, attentive and still, watching performances that exist only in memory. In Decatur Middle School, The past is not faded. The past is not faded. It lingers in the polished wooden floors, in the flutter of the curtains, and in the very air of the auditorium. The students who perish continue to sit and watch, eternally present, and the echoes of that tragic night persist, carrying a story of loss, remembrance, and the haunting persistence of memory. Macon County High School, a long-standing institution in the heart of Macon, has educated generations of students over the past century. Its sprawling campus blends modern classrooms with an older wing that dates back to the early 1920s, a section steeped in history and, according to many, a lingering presence from the past. Though the school continues to function normally, the older wing carries stories of unusual activity, strange occurrences, and a history that refuses to remain silent. Teachers and staff have long reported phenomena that defy explanation. Desks occasionally slide across the floors, sometimes shifting into neat rows, other times appearing haphazardly moved. Chalk moves across blackboards without a hand to guide it, leaving faint markings or incomplete phrases that seem almost deliberate. Students, particularly those who remain late for extracurricular activities or detention, report seeing shadowy figures in the hallways at night. Lockers swing open and close of their own accord, accompanied by the metallic clatter of doors that no one has touched. These forms are often dark silhouettes, human in shape but indistinct in detail. Some stand silently, watching from corners or doorways, while others seem to move along the halls with measured steps, pausing as though checking on the activities of the living. Many witnesses describe a sense of being observed, a heavy feeling that someone or something is aware of their presence even when the hallway is otherwise empty. The older wing has a storied history, and local legend offers an explanation for these persistent hauntings. In the 1920s, Macon County High faced outbreaks of disease, accidents, and other tragedies that claimed the lives of several students. The wing itself was among the first buildings constructed on campus, hosting classrooms, laboratories, and study halls for these young scholars. According to the lore, some of those students never fully left the halls they once occupied, their spirits lingering, tied to the school they loved or the lives ended too soon. Many of the occurrences align with this legend. Teachers report chalk appearing on boards with lessons incomplete, as if students are attempting to finish what they began decades ago. Desks shift into positions that suggest preparation for a class that no longer exists. Locker doors swing open as though the students are accessing belongings long gone. Witnesses often describe a feeling of presence in empty classrooms, a subtle hum of energy that fills the space like the echo of laughter or whispered conversation from another era. Hallway encounters are the most unnerving for modern students. One teenager recounted walking down the corridor late in the evening, only to see a figure standing at the far end, completely still. As he approached, the figure seemed to melt into the shadows, disappearing without a trace. Another student described hearing footsteps pacing just behind her in the hallway, soft but deliberate, and when she turned, nothing was there. The sensation of being watched is common. Some students claim the shadowy figures linger near lockers or classroom doors, silent observers of the school's present life. Even teachers with years of experience speak of moments that leave them unsettled. One longtime instructor recalled staying late to grade papers in the older wing. While glancing toward the doorway, she saw a shadowy form move past the end of the hall. The presence did not make a sound, yet the air felt charged with energy. Another teacher, preparing a science lab for the next day, discovered that several desks had been rearranged into neat clusters, though she had left them differently before leaving. These incidents are recurring, yet they never convey malice. Many staff interpret the events as echoes of students' continuing routines, almost ritualistic, from a time long past. Janitorial staff working overnight shifts have noted subtle but distinct phenomena as well. Lights flicker without cause. Temperature drops are sudden and localized, and the metallic clanging of lockers echoes to the otherwise silent corridors. Some have seen faint shapes moving just beyond their line of sight, or felt the brush of a presence as they moved down the halls. Cameras installed for security occasionally capture fleeting shadows, too indistinct to identify, yet unmistakably human in form. These experiences reinforce the idea that the older wing retains a connection to its past, a layer of memory. A layer of memory that has taken on its own physicality. Paranormal enthusiasts have investigated the older wing, noting consistent patterns in activity. Chalk marks appear at roughly the same heights as they would have been used by students of decades past. Desks and chairs are often displaced in familiar classroom arrangements. Shadowy figures appear near lockers and along hallways at night. And temperature anomalies cluster in the oldest sections of the building. Investigators often remark that the activity seems organized, almost purposeful, as if the spirits are reenacting routines from the lives they once led. Despite the eerie experiences, the spirits of Macon County High are generally described as neither hostile nor frightening in the long term. Witnesses often speak of a lingering sense of nostalgia, a connection to a time when the school was new and students were full of energy and promise. The shadowy figures appear engaged in their own routines, bound to the school by memory, repetition, and perhaps a desire to remain connected to a place that shaped their lives in ways that death could not undo. Even today, the older wing continues to carry its spectral energy. Student and staff who enter at night may feel cold drafts sweep past them, see desks shift, chalk move across boards, or catch glimpses of figures watching silently from the shadows. The hallways echo with a faint impression of footsteps and soft murmurs, reminders of lives lived long ago. In Macon County High's oldest classrooms and corridors, the past has not vanished. It endures in subtle movements, faint sounds, and ghostly presences of students from the 1920s who never truly left, continuing their routines in a world that has long since moved on. Columbus High School, a landmark institution in the heart of Columbus, has educated generations of students since its earliest classrooms were built nearly a century ago. Its red brick facade, tall windows, and sprawling corridors hold the echoes of countless lessons, school events, and youthful energy. Yet, beneath the ordinary bustle of classrooms and hallways lies a lingering presence that many insist cannot be explained by time or memory alone. The older wing of the school, with its wooden floors, high ceilings, and worn desks, has long been the center of reports of ghostly activity, and those who enter its halls often feel the weight of its history pressing close. Staff and students alike describe phenomena that are both unsettling and persistent. Phantom footsteps echo along the hallways, following those who walk alone after hours or during quiet periods. The steps are deliberate, measured, and almost human in cadence, yet when witnesses turn to look, no one is there. The sound seems to move with them, sometimes fading at one end of the corridor only to reappear at the other. Along with these auditory hints of presence, sudden cold spots are common in the older classrooms. Temperatures can drop sharply for no reason, a chilling contrast to the otherwise warm, climate-controlled hallways. The sensation is often accompanied by a shiver or goosebumps, leaving visitors with the unnerving feeling of being observed by unseen eyes. Mysterious laughter is another frequent occurrence. It is rarely loud or boisterous. Instead, it drifts along the halls softly, sometimes echoing faintly through doorways or from empty classrooms. Teachers have reported hearing the giggles of children during late-night grading sessions, only to find the rooms empty. Students who linger in the hallways or older classrooms after school occasionally hear the same phenomenon alight, almost playful, yet completely inexplicable. The laughter is sometimes accompanied by subtle movements, chairs scraping the floor, books shifting on shelves, or the faint rustle of paper as though someone is flipping through pages. Perhaps the most striking reports involve full-bodied apparitions. Witnesses have described seeing figures seated at old desks, as if attending lessons from decades past. Some figures appear as young students, quietly focused, their forms slightly translucent yet undeniably human. Others have been observed walking the hallways, following the familiar routes of long-forgotten classes, pausing briefly by doors or blackboards before fading into the shadows. Teachers working late have sometimes glimpsed a figure entering a classroom, standing at the front, and then vanishing when approached. These apparitions seem tied to the school's past routines, repeating movements and behaviors frozen in time. The older classrooms themselves seem to hold residual energy from decades of use. Desks occasionally shift slightly, Chalk moves across blackboards without explanation, and books can be found out of place even after being carefully organized. Light fixtures sometimes flicker or dim unexpectedly, and the air feels charged with an almost tangible presence. Those who experience it often speak of a sense of history coming alive and not threatening, but insistently reminding visitors that the past is never truly gone. Local legend ties these occurrences to students and teachers from the school's earliest years. In the 1920s and 1930s, Columbus High was a bustling hub of education. Yet it faced tragedies typical of the era: sudden illnesses, accidents, and untimely deaths among its students. Some say these spirits linger because their lives were cut short, their routines left unfinished, and their energy bound to the spaces they once inhabited. The stories passed down through staff and alumni suggest that these are not malevolent ghosts, but rather echoes of life. Spirits engaged in the routines they loved, endlessly attending classes that no longer exist. Visitors who enter the older wing often report a mix of fear and fascination. One student staying late for a science project described hearing footsteps pacing behind her, turning to see a shadowy figure move silently down the hall before disappearing into the darkness. Another teacher, organizing papers in a classroom after school hours, saw a faint figure sitting at the back of the room, hunched over a desk as if grading assignments. When she approached, the figure faded, leaving only the faint impression of presence behind. Experiences like these are consistent, suggesting an ongoing awareness of the living within the space. Paranormal enthusiasts who have investigated the older classrooms of Columbus High note the consistency and specificity of the phenomena. Cameras capture fleeting silhouettes in doorways or at the end of halls. Audio devices record soft footsteps, rustling pages, and occasional whispers. Temperature sensors detect sudden drops near particular desks or corridors, often coinciding with eyewitness accounts. Even photographs taken in these areas sometimes show faint, indistinct shapes that are difficult to explain through natural causes. These repeated patterns point to a presence that is more than memory, a something tethered to the building itself. Despite the eerie nature of these events, those who witness them often report that the spirits seem more curious than threatening. They move through classrooms and halls in ways that suggest they are engaged in their routines, endlessly repeating moments from their own lives. The full-bodied apparitions, the floating books, the whispering laughter, they all appear to be a replay of daily school life, preserved in a way that transcends time. Teachers and students who have encountered these phenomena often describe a sense of connection rather than danger, as if the school's history is being quietly honored by its invisible occupants. Even today, when the hallways are empty and the classrooms silent, the older wing of Columbus High seems to hum with the energy of the past. Phantom footsteps follow down the corridors, laughter drifts through the air, and shadowy figures move with purpose, attending lessons that no longer exist. Desks shift, chalk scrawls appear on boards, and books move as if handled by unseen hands. The ghosts of Columbus High School are ever-present reminders that the past lingers, watching and waiting, in the very spaces where generations once learned, laughed, and lived, carrying the echoes of a school that never truly sleeps. Brunswick High School, nestled in the heart of its coastal town, has long been a center for academics, athletics, and community pride. Its hallways echo with the sounds of students, laughter, and the rhythm of daily life, but few areas of the school carry as much legend as the old gymnasium. This historic space, with its polished wooden floors, high ceilings, and rows of worn bleachers, has been the site of countless practices, games, and assemblies. Yet for decades, whispers and strange sightings have suggested that the gym is not entirely empty, even after the final bell is rung. The haunting is said to date back to the mid-20th century, when several promising athletes tragically lost their lives. The causes varied: accidents during practice, transportation mishaps, and sudden illnesses, but the impact on the school community was profound. The gym, once a place of excitement and triumph, became a silent reminder of young lives cut short. Since that time, students, staff, and visitors have reported unexplained phenomena that suggest the athletisa spirits remain tied to the courts they once loved. One of the most common experiences involves the sound of basketballs bouncing. Teachers working late or custodians cleaning after hours often hear the rhythmic thump of balls against the polished hardwood, echoing through the otherwise empty gym. The sound is distinct, precise, and unmistakably human, as if a team is running drills in perfect unison. Those who investigate frequently find no balls on the floor, yet the sound persists, moving from one end of the gym to the other, following patterns consistent with practice routines. Sneakers squeaking on the floor is another hallmark of the haunting. Visitors have described hearing the familiar squeak of shoes pivoting and running, even when the gym is completely empty. The squeaks often accompany the sound of bouncing balls, giving the impression of a full team practicing, complete with dribbling, pivots, and quick steps. Occasionally, these noises are accompanied by the subtle sound of whistles, as though an invisible coach is directing the drills. The experience is immersive, leaving witnesses feeling as though they are sharing the gym with unseen players from the past. Locker doors add to the eerie ambience. Doors swing open and slam shut without warning, sometimes in sequence as though following an invisible rhythm. Custodial staff have recounted seeing lockers open simultaneously along a row, the echoes reverberating across the empty space. Other times, individual doors rattle or pop closed, drawing attention to areas that remain empty. The consistent interaction with objects in the gym suggests not chaos, but a routine performed over and over, perhaps echoing practices that were interrupted decades ago. Spectral players have been observed by both students and staff. These figures are often described as translucent, human-shaped silhouettes, running through drills or moving toward the hoops for shots. Some witnesses report seeing a full team spread across the court, each figure executing familiar basketball maneuvers with precision. When approached, the figures vanish, leaving only the echo of their footsteps or the faint scent of sweat and polish that seems to linger in the air. Spectators have also reported a haunting visual spectacle. On quiet evenings, when the gym lights are dimmed, shadows are seen darting across the court as if the players are engaged in drills or scrimmages. Some claim to see a player take a shot, the ball soaring through the air and disappearing just before it reaches the hoop. Others see fleeting forms stretching, pivoting, or passing to teammates who exist only in outline. The effect is subtle but unmistakable. The gym seems alive with the energy of athletes long gone, preserving their passion and practice in spectral form. Teachers who have spent late nights in the gym often describe the energy as tangible. One coach, preparing for a new season, reported hearing sneakers squeak and balls bounce while alone, accompanied by whispers of encouragement and the faint sound of cheers. Despite the eerie nature of the experience, he described the feeling as strangely uplifting, as if the athletes were encouraging the living to carry forward the spirit of the game. Another staff member noted that equipment occasionally shifted slightly, as though being positioned for practice by unseen hands. These subtle interactions reinforce the notion that the gym is more than just a haunted space. It is a place of memory, repetition, and persistence. Paranormal investigators visiting Brunswick High Gym have captured audio of bouncing balls and the squeak of shoes when no one is present. Motion-sensitive cameras have occasionally detected blurred figures in the corners of the court, while temperature sensors record sudden, localized drops near key areas like the free throw line or along the sidelines. Lights sometimes flicker, shadows dance in the periphery of vision, and the scent of gym floor polish lingers long after custodians have left. These patterns are consistent across decades, suggesting that the gym remains tethered to the events of the past, preserving routines and moments in spectral form. Despite the tragic history, the spirits of Brunswick High's gymnasium are not malevolent. Witnesses consistently report a sense of purpose, not menace. The balls bounce, the sneakers squeak, and the lockers slam as though the athletes are continuing their practices, repeating drills, and playing games they were never able to finish in life. In this way, the gym becomes a living memory of their energy, dedication, and love for the sport. Even today, when the school is quiet and the gym empty, one might hear the rhythmic bounce of a ball, the squeak of shoes, or the faint whistle of a coach. Shadowy players dart across the court, vanishing when approached, yet their presence remains undeniable. Brunswick High's old gymnasium stands as a place where past and present collide, a space where the passion of young athletes endures beyond the limits of life, forever replaying games that echo through time. Rome Elementary, located in the heart of the town of Rome, is a school that has educated generations of children. Its bright hallways, colorful classrooms, and playgrounds are familiar to students and teachers alike. Yet, in the older sections of the building, a presence lingers that cannot be explained by ordinary causes. The school has long been associated with stories of unexplained phenomena, whispers of the past that manifest in doors that swing on their own, chalk that moves across blackboards, and faint laughter that drifts down empty hallways. The origins of these hauntings trace back decades to a former janitor, and a handful of students whose spirits are said to remain tied to the school they loved. The former janitor was a dedicated man who cared deeply for the children and the building. He spent long hours after school, scrubbing floors, polishing desks, and ensuring that every classroom was clean and orderly for the following day. His presence was a quiet constant, known for gentle guidance and a warm smile. Yet his life ended abruptly in the 1950s under circumstances still remembered by longtime residents. Shortly after his passing, reports of strange activity began to emerge, concentrated in the areas he frequented most: the hallways, staircases, and classrooms in the older wing. One of the first signs of his lingering presence is the movement of doors. Staff working late have often found doors to classrooms or storage closets opening and closing without a hand to guide them. Sometimes these movements are subtle, a gentle push that causes a door to swing slightly ajar. At other times, doors slam with surprising force, startling anyone nearby. Custodians and teachers alike report that these occurrences often coincide with quiet, reflective moments, as if the janitorial spirit is still walking the halls, attending to school in the way he did in life. Chalkboards are another area where the paranormal seems most evident. Teachers who have arrived early for preparation or stayed late for grading have witnessed pieces of chalk rolling and writing on their own, leaving traces that vanish moments later. Sometimes the marks are simple A-lines or shapes that resemble diagrams for lessons. Other times, they hint at playful messages, as if the spirits of students from long ago are attempting to communicate with the living, inviting interaction, or simply enjoying the echo of past classrooms. Laughter is perhaps the most commonly reported phenomenon. It is rarely loud or frightening. Instead, it drifts through empty hallways, soft and fleeting, like the laughter of children at play. Teachers arriving early or leaving late often hear this laughter echoing from classrooms or stairwells, accompanied at times by the faint sound of footsteps, scuffling, or the shuffle of small feet on the floor. Visitors have described the sensation as both eerie and oddly comforting, as though the school briefly returns to a time when it was alive with the energy of children. Shadowy figures are reported moving between classrooms, particularly in the older wing of the school. Some are small, childlike shapes darting along the walls or between desks, while others are slightly larger and more human in form. Witnesses describe them running, playing, or even peeking around corners, as though participating in school activities long after their time has passed. These apparitions rarely interact with the living, instead repeating movements that suggest a continuation of daily life, a walking to a desk, opening a book, or sharing a quiet moment with an unseen friend. Students and staff alike have described the sensation of being watched in these areas. There is a quiet attentiveness to the spirits of movements, as if they are observing the school in a way that mirrors their routines from decades ago. Teachers have found desks slightly rearranged when returning to classrooms after a brief absence, or noticed objects that have been subtly moved, as if invisible hands are tidying or participating in school life. The energy is never threatening. Rather, it carries a sense of care and curiosity, the residual echoes of people who loved the space and the routines that gave it purpose. Paranormal investigators have documented consistent patterns within the older wing. Audio recordings capture laughter, faint footsteps, and the soft rustle of papers or clothing. Motion sensors detect activity where no one is present, particularly near hallways and classrooms most frequented by the janitor in life. Cameras occasionally reveal small, indistinct shapes darting between desks or along walls. Temperature readings often fluctuate unpredictably, dropping suddenly in areas associated with reported sightings, reinforcing the idea that the Skulla-esque spirits are tied to specific locations and routines. Despite the haunting, those who witness the phenomena rarely report fear. Instead, many describe a sense of nostalgia, a connection to the Skulla-esque history, and a reminder of the energy and vitality that once filled its hallways. The janitora-esque presence is often felt as a guiding or protective force, ensuring continued care of the school, while the Studenza spirits evoke memories of childhood curiosity and play. Together, they create an atmosphere in which the past and present overlap, allowing the living a glimpse into school as it once was. Even today, in the quiet hours when halls of Rome Elementary are empty, doors may swing open, chalk may scribble across boards, and soft laughter drifts through corridors. Shadowy figures flit between classrooms, running, playing, and observing, carrying the echoes of life long past. The school's old wing remains alive with memory, a place where the spirits of devoted janitor and spirited students continue to move, teach, and play, reminding all who enter that some presences never truly leave, and that the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. A devoted janitor and spirited students continue to move, teach, and play, reminding all who enter that some presences never truly leave, and that the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. Reminding all who enter that some presences never truly leave, and that the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. And that the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. Long beyond the lives that walked its floors. The energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. That the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. That the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. The energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. That the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. That the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. The energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. Long beyond the lives that walked its floors. The energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. That the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. That the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. The energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. That the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. That the energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. The energy of a place built with care endures long beyond the lives that walked its floors. Athens Middle School, located in the heart of Athens, has long been a center of learning, curiosity, and youthful energy. Its hallways bustle with students moving between classrooms, teachers carrying lesson plans, and the occasional hum of after-school activities. Yet in the older science wing, a quieter, more mysterious energy lingers, a one that has intrigued, unsettled, and sometimes frightened those who spend time there. For decades, reports of unexplained occurrences have circulated, drawing both fascination and apprehension from staff, students, and local residents alike. The story begins in the 1960s, when a bright and eager student, known for a keen interest in science, frequently spent long hours in the Skulla-esque labs. Experiments, chemistry projects, and study sessions filled their days, but one fateful afternoon changed everything. While hurrying down the stairwell connecting the science wing to the lower floors, the students suffered a tragic fall. Despite immediate aid, they did not survive the accident. The school community was shaken, and the stairwell where the incident occurred has been associated with unusual activity ever since. Since that time, visitors to the old science wing have reported countless phenomena. Glass beakers and flasks, often carefully arranged on shelves, sometimes tip over as if nudged by invisible hands. Students who enter the labs late for study sessions or extracurricular work describe the unsettling sound of clinking glass, with nothing visibly causing it. Shells occasionally shake on their own, sometimes knocking small objects to the floor, as though experiments are being conducted by unseen hands. The activity is often subtle but persistent, enough to leave a sense of presence and energy in the air that cannot be attributed to normal causes. Shadowy figures are another frequent report. Students and staff describe feeling watched, as though someone is silently observing their movements, tracking their actions even as they attempt to work alone. The energy is sometimes playful, sometimes anxious, but always palpable. The stairwell itself holds the most chilling memories. Those who have ventured into the stairwell after hours report sudden drops in temperature, accompanied by the soft sound of footsteps echoing down the steps. On occasion, the faint sound of someone calling for help or murmuring a name can be heard. Some students have claimed to see a translucent figure hurrying down the stairs, only to vanish just before reaching the bottom, leaving behind a shiver-inducing emptiness and a lingering sense of being followed. Teachers and custodial staff also encounter phenomena that defy explanation. One long-time instructor recalled entering a lab to set up an experiment, only to see glassware shift slightly as if being organized by invisible hands. The presence seems bound to the stairwell, retracing the accident repeatedly, searching for a hand to catch them that never arrives. On another occasion, a custodian described hearing a chain of faint footsteps approaching from the stairwell, only to find no one present when he looked. These experiences are often accompanied by subtle changes in the environment and a faint scent of chemicals, a breeze where no windows are open or lights flickering momentarily, creating a sense that the wing is alive with unseen energy. Students report a mix of fear and fascination. Many feel a pull toward the labs, curious about the presence that continues to linger decades after the original tragedy. Some attempt to interact with the spirits, leaving notes or quietly speaking, only to experience minor disturbances in response to a tipped beaker, a shuffled paper, or the echo of footsteps approaching and retreating. These interactions are often brief, but they reinforce the idea that the spirits are present, aware, and perhaps longing for connection, even after so many years. Paranormal enthusiasts who have investigated the old science wing note the consistency of the reports. Cameras capture faint shadows moving in corners or along shelves, while audio devices record the soft clinking of glass and the echo of footsteps. Temperature sensors detect sudden, localized drops, particularly near the stairwell and lab benches. Motion detectors sometimes register movement when no one is present, highlighting persistent presence that seems to occupy the space at all hours. These patterns suggest that the wing retains a memory of its past, replaying moments with an energy that is both residual and interactive. Despite the eerie nature of these occurrences, the spirits of Athens' Middle Science Wing are rarely malevolent. The presence of the student who fell appears more anxious than harmful, endlessly retracing their final steps and occasionally interacting with objects in the labs. Teachers who have experienced these events often describe a sense of being observed or gently guided, rather than threatened, and students often report a mixture of awe and respect when encountering these subtle manifestations. Even today, when the school is quiet and the hallways empty, the old science wing of Athens Middle seems alive with echoes of past. Glass beakers tip over, shelves tremble, and shadows flit just beyond vision. The stairwell, haunted by the memory of a life cut short, continues to trace its steps, searching for someone to catch them, while the labs carry the residue of experiments long finished but never forgotten. In Athens Middle School, the past lingers, a quiet reminder that some presences remain bound to places they loved, carrying memory, curiosity, and unfinished moments through the decades. Gainesville High School, situated in the heart of Gainesville, has long been recognized for its strong academic programs and vibrant student life. Among its many facilities, the Music Hall stands out not only for its historic charm, but also for the inexplicable events that have fascinated and unsettled generations of students and staff. The hall, with its polished wooden floors, high ceilings, and rows of seats facing a grand stage, has witnessed countless recitals, band performances, and choir practices over the decades. Yet beneath its surface of celebration and creativity, a lingering presence has made itself known, leaving echoes of the past alive in the present. Reports of strange occurrences in the music hall date back decades. Teachers and students often describe hearing pianos playing by themselves, the keys moving as though guided by invisible hands. Sometimes the music is a complete piece, flowing naturally as if performed by someone present on the bench. Witnesses say the sound is unmistakable, coming from specific pianos in the hall, often in the quiet hours before classes begin or after the building is empty. Attempts to locate the source are fruitless as no one is at the instrument. Yet the notes continue, echoing through the hall with haunting clarity. Lights are another common element of the haunting. They flicker without explanation, dimming or brightening in patterns that seem deliberate. Some staff report that lights respond to the music, flickering in rhythm with piano keys or to the tempo of singing. Occasionally, spotlights on the stage turn on or off as if an unseen hand is illuminating performers from another era. These visual disturbances, combined with the sounds of spontaneous music, create an atmosphere in which the hall seems alive, caught between past performances and the present moment. The faint sound of singing often accompanies the music. Choir pieces, harmonies, and solo performances drift through the hall even when it is empty. Some describe it as layered voices, gentle and ethereal, blending together to recreate rehearsals or recitals long past. The singing is never harsh or jarring. It carries a sense of dedication and focus, as though the students performing are committed to completing a performance interrupted by time. Occasionally, witnesses report seeing the motion of mouths or the sway of figures on stage, though the apparitions remain fleeting and intangible. Student apparitions are among the most compelling reports. Witnesses describe translucent figures dressed in clothing styles from decades ago, seated at pianos, holding sheet music, or moving in synchronized practice routines. Some appear to be soloists, lost in concentration, while others are engaged in ensemble pieces, coordinating with one another as if preparing for a recital that no longer exists. These figures are often observed only in the corner of the eye, vanishing when fully looked at, leaving behind the faintest traces of the echo of footsteps, the subtle movement of music stands, or the lingering scent of old sheet music and polish. Teachers working late or preparing for evening events have reported encounters that combine several of these phenomena. One music instructor described entering the hall after dark, only to hear piano keys moving in a familiar piece, accompanied by soft choral singing. As she approached the stage, a shadowy figure seated at a piano vanished, leaving the instrument gently vibrating with the last note. Another staff member noted the movement of sheet music across stands, as if being rearranged by unseen hands in preparation for a performance. These experiences are often both unsettling and awe-inspiring, a blend of reverence for the past and curiosity about the present. Many believe the spirits are former students and dedicated musicians who poured their energy and passion into the music hall decades ago. Some of these students died young, or were unable to complete their performances due to circumstances beyond their control. The consensus is that these spirits are bound by their devotion to music, unwilling to let a piece remain unfinished or a recital unplayed. Their presence, while eerie, is imbued with purpose, commitment, and profound attachment to the music they once practiced. Audio devices record piano notes and faint singing when no one is present. Cameras occasionally capture blurred figures at the edges of the stage or seated at instruments. Temperature sensors detect cold spots near pianos and the stage, and light fluctuations often coincide with music or movement. These repeated phenomena suggest that the hall retains a strong connection to performances of the past, replaying them in a loop that honors the dedication of those who once occupied it. Despite the haunting, the presence in Gainesville High's music hall is generally considered benign. Witnesses frequently describe the spirits as focused, purposeful, and even inspiring. Some students claim that practice in the hall feels different. The music seems to flow more naturally, as if accompanied by unseen teachers and performers. The apparitions do not interact aggressively, but instead maintain routines they loved, carrying forward the energy of countless recitals, practices, and lessons. Even today, when the school is quiet and the seats are empty, the music hall remains alive with echoes. Pianos play themselves, lights flicker, and ethereal singing drifts across the room. Shadowy figures perform, practicing scales, recitals, and harmonies with dedication that transcends decades, where the devotion of past students ensures that the performance never truly ends, and the melodies of the past continue to resonate in the present. Valdosta Middle School, nestled in the heart of Valdosta, has long been a place of learning, curiosity, and youthful energy. Its classrooms echo with lessons and laughter, and the halls buzz with the footsteps of students moving between classes. Yet in one corner of the school, a quiet, haunting presence lingers at the old library. This library, with its tall shelves, worn wooden floors, and rows of study tables, has been the center of countless stories, both inspiring and eerie. For decades, reports have circulated of books floating without hands to lift them, pages turning on their own, and whispers that drift through the stacks when a library is empty. The legend begins several decades ago, when a fire broke out in the library. The cause was never fully determined, though some accounts suggest it started from a faulty heater or misplaced candle used during an evening study session. Many believe that the spirits of students who perished long ago still inhabit the space, bound to the desks and shelves where they once spent their days. The blaze spread quickly, and though much of the school was saved, the library suffered extensive damage. Several students who were studying late were trapped, and despite efforts to rescue them, some never escaped. Their lives ended among the stacks and desks, leaving a tragic mark on the building that has never fully faded. Since that time, those who enter the old library have reported phenomena that cannot easily be explained by science or logic. One of the most commonly reported occurrences involves books. Visitors often see books levitating, floating a few inches off the shelves or hovering midair before gently settling back down. Sometimes pages turn on their own, as if the students are continuing their reading or reviewing lessons from decades past. Teachers and custodial staff have recounted witnessing stacks of books shifting slightly, moving in patterns that resemble organization or study routines. The movement is subtle yet deliberate, suggesting intelligence and intent behind the actions. Whispers are another persistent element of the haunting. Many who enter the library after school hours report faint voices calling names, reciting facts, or even quietly murmuring about lessons. The whispers are soft and layered, often coming from multiple directions at once. Students have described hearing their own names being spoken in the quiet stacks, sometimes accompanied by the rustle of pages or the shuffled footsteps. The voices are rarely threatening. Instead, they carry a sense of purpose, as if the students are still engaged in their studies, endlessly reviewing material they never had a chance to complete in life. Shadowy forms are often observed moving among the shelves. These figures are typically human-shaped but semi-transparent, their features blurred or difficult to discern. Some appear to sit at desks, hunched over books, while others seem to wander from shelf to shelf, busy as if tending to their studies. Students who have glimpsed these forms report a mix of fear and fascination, as the figures seem deeply absorbed in their routines, oblivious of living observers nearby. Teachers and staff have experienced other subtle disturbances. Chairs occasionally slide across the floor. Papers shift on desks. And sometimes small objects like pencils or rulers roll gently without cause. Light fixtures have been known to flicker when no one is near, and the air often carries sudden chills, particularly near the rows of shelves or the desks where students were last seen decades ago. These occurrences are sporadic, but consistent enough to leave a lasting impression on anyone who spends time in a library alone. Local lore maintains that the spirits are students who never left their desks. They are often described as diligent, serious, and dedicated to their studies, even in death. The haunting seems to be an echo of their unfinished routines, a reading, writing, and learning in a space they cherished. The energy in a library is not violent or malicious. Instead, it is focused, persistent, and purposeful. Those who encounter phenomena often feel a sense of awe, as if stepping into a moment suspended in time, witnessing students continuing the work they were so passionate about. Paranormal investigators visiting Valdosta Middle School have noted consistent patterns in the library. Audio recordings capture whispers, soft rustling, and the faint turning of pages. Motion-activated cameras have occasionally picked up blurred silhouettes, moving between stacks or hovering over desks. Temperature sensors detect localized drops near areas of high activity, particularly around the original study tables. Even photographs sometimes show faint, indistinct shapes standing or sitting among shelves, adding weight to the reports of consistent spectral activity. Despite the eerie nature of the phenomena, those who frequent the library often describe the spirits as benign. Teachers who work late or students who stay behind for study sessions report a quiet respect for the unseen occupants. The apparitions appear dedicated to their routines, endlessly reading, studying, and moving about the space as they did in life. It is as if the library has become a preserved realm, where the passion for learning endures beyond the limits of time and mortality. Books flow from shelves, pages turn on their own, and whispers echo through the aisles. Even today, the old library of Valdosta Middle remains a place where the past and present overlap. Shadowy figures move between stacks, studying, reading, and tending the library with unwavering focus. The spirits of students who never left their desks continue their routines, keeping alive the dedication and curiosity that once defined their lives. In Valdosta Middle School, the echoes of the past are never truly silent, and the library remains a sanctuary where learning endures beyond death itself. Savannah Elementary, located in the historic heart of Savannah, has been a center of education for generations of children. Its brick walls and tall windows have witnessed countless lessons, recess games, and school events. However, the older wing of the building, long abandoned, has become the focus of whispers, rumors, and chilling experiences. Though the classrooms have been empty for years, many insist that the halls are far from silent, filled instead with the echoes of the past and the presence of students and teachers who never truly left. Phantom footsteps are among the most commonly reported phenomena. Visitors and staff often hear the rhythmic tap of shoes along the long, empty corridors. The sounds vary in pace and intensity, sometimes soft and tentative, other times brisk, like children hurrying to their next class. Many who walk the halls after hours describe the unsettling sensation of being followed, the footsteps keeping pace with their own, yet fading when they stop or turn. These auditory traces seem to belong to the memories of those who once filled the school with energy and life, looping endlessly in the spaces where they once moved. Chalkboards, though now coated with dust and cobwebs, are another source of mysterious activity. Chalk occasionally shifts across the boards as if guided by invisible hands, forming faint letters, shapes, or simple lines. Teachers who enter the abandoned classrooms have reported seeing chalk smudges appear in patterns that suggest deliberate writing and perhaps reminders of lessons long past or playful doodles from children who never left. The movement is subtle, yet deliberate, a quiet reminder that the building is still alive with unseen activity. Lockers, long in use and rusted in the old wing, are also prone to sudden disturbances. Doors swing open or slam shut without explanation, echoing through the silent hallways with metallic clang. Sometimes several lockers move in sequence, as if a group of students were accessing their belongings together. Other times, a single locker will pop open, seemingly to reveal nothing at all. Custodians and security staff have recounted the chilling experience of hearing lockers slam when they know the wing is empty, leaving them with the unnerving impression that the past is moving independently of the present. Perhaps the most striking reports involve shadowy figures glimpsed in fleeting moments. Visitors describe small, childlike shapes darting to the empty classrooms, playing tag, running between desks, and disappearing into corners. Some say they have seen these figures pause briefly, glancing toward them before continuing their games, as if entirely absorbed in their world. The apparitions are rarely threatening. They appear joyful, energetic, and entirely focused on reliving the routines and activities that once defined their school days. In this sense, the old wing of Savannah Elementary has become a space frozen in time, where moments from the past are repeated endlessly. Teachers and students who have ventured into the abandoned wing report a mixture of awe and unease. Some have heard laughter drifting from empty rooms, light and playful, echoing along corridors as if carried by children unseen. Others feel the sudden chill of cold air passing through them, a tangible reminder of the presence that lingers where the warmth of life once thrived. Desks, chairs, and classroom supplies occasionally shift slightly, as if being handled by unseen hands, reinforcing the sense that the space is still actively used by its ghostly occupants. Local legend explains the phenomena as the lingering presence of students who never left. According to stories passed down through staff and alumni, the old wing of Savannah Elementary once housed a thriving population of children whose lives ended prematurely due to accidents, illness, or other tragedies. The spirits of these students, attached to the places where they spent their days, continue to move through the classrooms, playing, learning, and attending to routines long since abandoned by the living. Their presence is a combination of curiosity, playfulness, and nostalgia, a reflection of the energy that once filled the school. Paranormal investigators who have explored the abandoned wing note consistent patterns. Audio recordings capture the faint patter of footsteps, soft laughter, and the subtle shifting of objects. Cameras occasionally detect fleeting, indistinct shapes moving across corridors or disappearing behind doors. Temperature sensors record sudden localized drops in areas associated with sightings, particularly near classrooms once heavily populated by students. Despite the eerie nature of the wing, the spirits are generally considered benign. Those who experience the phenomena rarely feel threatened. Instead, they describe a sense of wonder, nostalgia, or the gentle energy of children. The games of tag, the laughter, the subtle movements of furniture and chalk all appear to reflect the playful, innocent routines of school life, preserved long after the physical presence of the students has ended. The old wing, while abandoned, remains animated by memory, energy, and the persistence of youthful spirit. Even today, when the corridors of Savannah Elementary are quiet and the classrooms empty, the old wing remains alive with echoes of the past. Phantom footsteps follow unseen paths. Chalk moves across dusty boards. Lockers slam with sudden energy. And small shadowy figures play tag to the abandoned spaces. The students who never left continue to relive their days. Their laughter and movement fill the halls. The past endures, a perpetual reminder that some spirits never truly leave the places they love most, and that the joy of childhood can echo across decades, refusing to fade. Marietta High School, located in the heart of Marietta, has long been a place of learning, community, and spirited athletic events. Its hallways and classrooms are filled with memories of generations of students, teachers, and families. But among all its halls and facilities, two areas stand out for their unusual activity, the gymnasium and the auditorium. Both spaces, central to school life and performance, are said to harbor lingering presences of students whose lives were tragically cut short during a pep rally decades ago. Since that event, the echoes of their energy and passion have never truly left the building. The gymnasium, with its polished wooden floors, high ceilings, and rows of bleachers, has long been the center of athletic achievement at Marietta High. Students practice basketball, volleyball, and other sports in this space, yet even when the gym is empty, unusual occurrences are common. One of the most frequently reported phenomena is the sound of basketballs bouncing on their own. Teachers, custodians, and even students who stay late for practices have described hearing the rhythmic thump of a ball moving across the court, following familiar patterns of drills or warm-ups. Often, the bouncing is accompanied by the squeak of sneakers on the floor, though no one is physically present to produce the sounds. Footsteps are another hallmark of the Jima-esque haunting, sometimes running up and down the court, other times moving along the perimeter as if players are practicing layups or drills. Those who hear the footsteps often report a chilling sensation, the feeling of being followed by invisible athletes who are still committed to their routines. The noises are precise and purposeful, as though the spirits are determined to continue their games, unbroken by the passage of time. Phantom cheers add another layer to the eerie atmosphere. Visitors entering the gym or auditorium after hours sometimes hear the faint sound of clapping, whistles, and shouts, as if a crowd of students and spectators is present. The cheers rise and fall in cadence, occasionally peaking in excitement as if responding to a spectacular play or game. Some staff have described the sound as joyful, almost uplifting, yet undeniably otherworldly, filling the empty space with energy from decades past. Its stage, once host of pep rallies, performances, and assemblies, seems to retain a memory of excitement and celebration. Occasionally, lights flicker on and off, stage curtains sway without a breeze, and the soft shuffle of movement can be heard from backstage areas. Figures have been reported standing in the wings or moving across the stage. Some witnesses claim to see translucent shapes of former students practicing cheers, dances, or routines. The energy in the auditorium mirrors that of the gym, focused, passionate, and endlessly persistent. Witnesses often report seeing figures of former athletes and students. These apparitions vary in size and shape, but are usually human-like, appearing as translucent silhouettes, dressed in athletic uniforms or school clothing from decades past. Some are seen running drills, bouncing balls, or practicing plays. Others seem to be cheering or clapping in rhythm with phantom teammates. When approached, these figures vanish, leaving only the lingering sounds of activity, or the subtle movement of objects like basketballs, bleachers, or equipment left behind. The effect is both thrilling and unsettling, a blend of nostalgia, energy, and supernatural presence. Local legend explains the phenomena as the spirits of students who died during a tragic pep rally. The accident, which claimed several lives, shocked the community and left an indelible mark on Marietta High. It is said that the students who perished were so passionate about school spirit, sports, and performance that their energy could not be released by death alone. The gymnasium and auditorium, spaces where their excitement and dedication were most concentrated, became anchors for their spirits, binding them to the routines and joys they loved in life. Teachers and staff have often described experiences that blend awe and unease. One coach recalled staying late for practice and hearing the rhythmic bounce of balls and the squeak of shoes, even though no one else was in the gym. He reported a fleeting shadow moving across the court, vanishing when he approached. A music teacher preparing for a performance in the auditorium recounted seeing figures on stage moving in rehearsed routines, accompanied by the faint sound of cheering from an invisible audience. These experiences, repeated over decades, have created a shared understanding that the spaces themselves are infused with the spirits of the past. Paranormal investigators visiting Marietta High have documented consistent patterns. Audio devices capture footsteps, bouncing balls, and faint cheers when the areas are empty. Cameras occasionally reveal blurred shapes in the gym or along the stage, and temperature sensors detect sudden drops in localized areas. These recurring phenomena reinforce the notion that the energy from the tragic event continues to play out in the spaces most tied to student activity and school pride. Despite the haunting, the spirits of Marietta High are generally considered benign. They are not malevolent. Instead, they are focused, playful, and persistent. The bouncing balls, phantom footsteps, and cheering echo the energy of students reliving moments they loved, performing in their routines forever. Visitors often leave with a sense of awe, as if glimpsing the dedication, spirit, and vitality that once defined the school. Even today, when the halls are quiet and the gym and auditorium empty, the sounds persist. Phantom sneakers squeak, and the rhythm of the game echoes through the empty corridors. Cheers rise, and the energy of youthful passion is palpable, though the crowds are long gone. The spirits of Marietta High students continue to inhabit the spaces they loved, ensuring that the excitement of pep rallies, the rhythm of the game, and the energy of youthful passion are never truly gone. In Marietta High, the echoes of the past continue to play, and the games, cheers, and routines. Macon Elementary School, located in the heart of Macon, has long been a center for learning, creativity, and youthful energy. Among its many classrooms, the music and art rooms stand out not just for their colorful decorations and creative projects, but for the strange, unexplained phenomena that have fascinated staff, students, and visitors for decades. While these rooms are filled with instruments, paints, brushes, and canvases, it is often said that they are never truly empty. Ghostly presences tied to the passions of past students continue to move through these spaces, completing projects and practicing music long after their time on Earth has ended. The art room is often the first to show signs of activity. Visitors report brushes lifting from jars and moving across blank canvases without human hands to guide them. Paint seems to smear and blend on paper or canvas, creating shapes and designs that are both deliberate and fleeting. Some say the strokes resemble the styles of children from decades past, tiny hands expressing creativity even after death. Teachers who enter the room for early preparation or late cleanup have found sketches appearing overnight, as if an unseen student has been quietly drawing, inspired by the materials left out. Occasionally, pencils or crayons roll across tables, seemingly nudged by invisible hands, completing outlines or adding small flourishes to artwork that no living student began. The music room, equally haunted, carries its own symphony of strange occurrences. Instruments often play themselves, from the soft strum of a guitar to the crisp note of a piano key. Some teachers report hearing full pieces performed, melodies flowing naturally, as if students who once practiced there are still rehearsing for recitals or shows. Percussion instruments tap out rhythms, and wind instruments breathe out notes, echoing across the empty room with uncanny precision. Those who have stayed after hours often describe the sensation of invisible students performing together, a ghostly ensemble recreating rehearsals from decades ago. The haunting is not limited to objects alone. Shadowy figures have been observed moving among the art tables or music stands, their shapes faint and translucent, often only visible out of the corner of the eye. Witnesses describe children bending over projects, selecting brushes, or adjusting instruments, entirely absorbed in their work. Occasionally, one might glance up, as if aware of a living observer, before disappearing or returning to their unseen task. The presence is never threatening. Rather, it carries a sense of dedication, curiosity, and quiet persistence. Teachers and staff who encounter the phenomena often report a mixture of awe and unease. One art teacher described arriving early to prepare for class, only to see paint smeared across a blank canvas in precise, playful patterns. The music instructor recalled hearing a full piano piece, complete with accompanying percussion, while checking the room for a late student. When he approached the piano, the keys ceased moving, leaving only the lingering resonance of the music and a faint, inexplicable sense of presence. Many attribute these hauntings to students from decades past, children whose passion for art and music was so strong that it persists beyond their lifetimes. Some reports suggest that a tragedy in the school of history, whether an illness, accident, or other sudden event, left young artists and musicians bound to the rooms they loved. Their persistence manifests through the object around them. Brushes, paints, instruments, and sheets of music act as conduits for their lingering energy. The spirits seem compelled to continue their creative work, as if unfinished projects or unplayed pieces tether them to the space. Their persistence manifests through the object around them. Brushes, paints, instruments, and sheets of music act as conduits for their lingering energy. The spirits seem compelled to continue their creative work, as if unfinished projects or unplayed pieces tether them to space. Paranormal investigators visiting Macon Elementary have documented patterns that reinforce these stories. Cameras occasionally catch blurred shapes moving among tables or along shelves, while audio recordings capture faint piano notes, guitar strums, and the shuffle of brushes across paper. Temperature sensors detect sudden localized drops, particularly near workstations and instrument areas. Even lights sometimes flicker in rhythm with music, suggesting a synchronized interaction between the spirits and the environment. These consistent observations lend credence to the experiences reported by staff and visitors over the years. Despite the eerie nature of the phenomena, those who witness it rarely describe fear. Instead, many feel a sense of inspiration, nostalgia, or admiration for the dedication of these spectral students. It is as if the rooms themselves have become living museums of creativity, preserving the energy, curiosity, and passion of those who once learned and played there. The invisible children continue their projects, practicing techniques, completing artwork, and performing music, reminding the living of the enduring nature of creativity and the love of learning. Even today, the art and music rooms of Macon Elementary remain alive with unseen activity. Brushes move, Paint smear across blank canvases, and instruments play melodies long forgotten. Shadowy children bend over projects or perform alongside invisible peers, endlessly engaged in the activities they love most. The presence of these spirits ensures that the school's creative heart never truly rests. In Macon Elementary, the echoes of laughter, music, and artistic expression persist across decades, a testament to the enduring passion of the students who once filled its rooms. Decatur High School, located in the city of Decatur, has educated generations of students over its long history. Its hallways echo the footsteps of countless students. Its classrooms have seen years of lessons and experiments, and its auditorium has hosted innumerable performances and gatherings. Yet, amid the normal activity of school life, certain areas of Decatur High stand out for their unexplained phenomena. The science lab and auditorium, in particular, are known for mysterious occurrences that suggest the presence of spirits who have never truly left. Reports of phantom footsteps, sudden cold spots, and books falling from shelves have persisted for decades, leaving staff, students, and visitors with an unsettling sense that the past continues to replay itself within the Schola S walls. The science lab is among the most active locations in the school. Long rows of lab tables, glass beakers, and shelves of textbooks create an environment ripe for both learning and, apparently, the supernatural. Teachers and students alike have reported objects moving on their own, textbooks slipping from shelves, notebooks flipping open, and beakers tipping slightly as though handled by invisible hands. The movements are subtle but deliberate, suggesting intelligence and intent. Some staff describe walking into the lab after hours to find a notebook open on a table, pages marked with notes they hadn't written, or equipment slightly rearranged as if someone had been conducting experiments in secret. Shadowy figures are a recurring presence in the science lab. They are often seen at the edges of vision, dark, indistinct forms bending over lab tables, adjusting equipment, or walking between aisles. Observers rarely see full details, but the figures move with purpose, seemingly continuing lessons that ended decades ago. Students who have stayed late after school have reported feeling watched, as though unseen eyes follow them while they work. And that sensation often intensifies near the lab benches and shelves. And sudden cold spots are frequently recorded near these areas, adding to the sense that the spirits are present and active. The stage, curtains, and rows of seating have hosted countless events, from plays and concerts to assemblies and graduations. Visitors have reported the faint sound of footsteps on the stage, accompanied by the subtle rustle of curtains and the soft creak of floorboards, even when the space is empty. Some claim to hear distant applause, the echo of an audience cheering for a performance that no longer exists. Shadowy figures have been observed on stage or seated in the front rows, moving as though attending a lecture, rehearsal, or performance long forgotten by the living. Legends surrounding Decatur High suggest that the hauntings are tied to tragic accidents that claimed the lives of students decades ago. In some accounts, young scholars died in the science lab, taken suddenly while performing experiments or rushing between classrooms. Others perished in the auditorium during a rehearsal or assembly, cut down in a moment of unforeseen misfortune. According to the stories, these students are trapped in a loop, repeating the final day of their lives, they attending lessons, performing on stage, or moving between classrooms and never aware that time has moved on for the living. Staff members have shared numerous encounters that lend credence to these tales. One science teacher described entering the lab late to retrieve supplies, only to hear footsteps pacing between the lab tables. When she looked up, a shadowy figure quickly vanished behind a row of shelves, leaving only a faint chill in its wake. On another occasion, a custodian heard the sound of chairs sliding and books falling from shelves, yet found the room empty. Similarly, music and drama instructors have reported seeing indistinct figures on stage in the auditorium, moving through rehearsals that had ended decades earlier, their faces and expressions blurred but their actions deliberate. Paranormal investigators who have explored Decatur High note consistent patterns of activity. Audio recordings frequently capture footsteps, rustling pages, and distant murmurs when the building is empty. Motion sensors occasionally detect movement in the science lab or auditorium, yet no living person is present. Temperature sensors record sharp drops in localized areas, particularly near lab benches, shelves, and the stage. Even security cameras sometimes reveal fleeting shapes or blurred silhouettes that seem to move between classrooms or along hallways. These repeated phenomena suggest that the spaces retain the memory of those who once inhabited them, replaying moments of school life in a loop that transcends time. Despite the unsettling nature of these experiences, the spirits at Decatur High are not generally considered malevolent. The shadowy figures are seen arranging lab equipment, flipping through textbooks, or attending classes and rehearsals. The footsteps, cold spots, and falling books appear to be manifestations of their continued presence, rather than intentional acts of harm. Many staff and students describe the encounters as eerie but strangely poignant, a window into the lives of those who once filled the halls with energy, curiosity, and enthusiasm. Even today, in the quiet hours when the science lab and auditorium are empty, the remnants of the past linger. Books fall from shelves, pages turn by themselves, and the faint sound of footsteps echoes across polished floors. Shadowy figures move between classrooms and on stage, endlessly attending lessons, rehearsals, and experiments that no longer exist. The tragic students at Decatur High continue their routines, replaying the moment of their lives that were abruptly ended, ensuring that the memory of the School of S history remains alive in ways that are both haunting and unforgettable. Brunswick Middle School, located in the heart of Brunswick, has long been a hub of learning and activity for generations of children. Its classrooms and hallways have hosted countless lessons, recesses, and after-school activities, yet the older sections of the building hold a presence that is far less ordinary. The hallways, once bustling with students, now carry whispers, footsteps, and laughter long after the final bell. While by day the school seems normal, after dark the older corridors reveal a side of Brunswick Middle that many describe as both unsettling and sorrowful. The lingering spirits of students whose lives were tragically cut short, forever trapped in the School of S embrace. Reports of paranormal activity in the older hallways have been consistent for decades. One of the most common phenomena involves the movement of chairs. Teachers and custodial staff have described hearing chairs scrape across the floor as though a student were pulling them out to sit or shuffling them into place along desks. Sometimes these sounds are accompanied by the faint rustle of papers or the soft thump of textbooks being set down. Those who investigate often find nothing, yet the unmistakable evidence of activity, a chair slightly out of place. Papers moved suggests a presence beyond the ordinary. Doors are another source of unexplained disturbance. Classroom doors that should be firmly closed occasionally swing open or creak, as though someone has just entered or exited. The hinges groan in protest, echoing down empty hallways, creating a sense that the building itself is alive with movement. Some witnesses report hearing doors slam shut behind them, though no one is nearby. Others describe the slow, deliberate creak of a door opening in a sequence. Perhaps the most chilling reports come from the auditory realm. Faint laughter has been heard echoing through the hallways, high-pitched and playful, often accompanied by the sound of hurried footsteps. Teachers working late have described the laughter as light and fleeting, as if a group of children is playing tag down the corridors. Yet when they attempt to investigate, the sounds vanish, leaving only the eerie stillness of the empty building. Students who stay after hours for tutoring or extracurricular activities sometimes report the sensation of being watched, a subtle presence moving just beyond their field of vision, while the laughter or footsteps continue unabated. Apparitions, though rarely seen in full detail, are another hallmark of Brunswick Midlia S hauntings. Witnesses describe shadowy figures moving along the corridors, pausing at doorways, or walking past classroom windows. These figures are often indistinct, pale shapes without clearly defined features, and yet their presence is unmistakable. Some are seen walking in pairs or groups, as though moving between classes, while others appear alone, lingering near desks or lockers. Others appear alone, lingering near desks or lockers. When observed directly, the figures often vanish into walls or around corners, leaving no trace but the lingering sense that they are still there, quietly repeating the routines of their school days. Local legend explains these hauntings as the spirits of students who never graduated. According to community stories, accidents, illnesses, or other sudden tragedies claimed the lives of several students decades ago. Bound by their love for learning, their friendships, or simply by the abrupt ending of their school days, these students remain tethered to Brunswick Middle. The hallways, desks, and classrooms they once occupied have become anchors, preserving fragments of their lives and routines, replaying them in an endless loop for anyone sensitive enough to notice. Staff and alumni who have encountered the phenomena often describe a mix of fear, curiosity, and sorrow. One custodian recounted hearing a series of footsteps pacing down the hall late at night, only to see a dark shape dissolve as he turned the corner. A teacher who stayed late grading papers described seeing a small figure seated at a desk in the old wing, head bent over a notebook as if completing an assignment A, and then disappearing when she approached. These experiences, repeated over years, have created a shared understanding among staff. The older hallways are haunted not with malice, but with the lingering presence of lives interrupted too soon. Paranormal investigators who have explored Brunswick Middle note consistent patterns. Motion sensors sometimes detect movement in the hallways after hours, even when the building is empty. Audio recordings capture faint footsteps, laughter, and the soft scraping of chairs. Cameras occasionally reveal blurred, human-like shapes moving along corridors or vanishing into walls. Temperature sensors detect sudden drops in localized areas, particularly near classrooms and hallways where the majority of sightings occur. These repeated phenomena suggest a persistent energy bound to the school, replaying fragments of life from decades past. Despite the eerie and sometimes unsettling nature of these experiences, the spirits of Brunswick Middle are generally considered benign. They do not interact aggressively or cause harm. Instead, they seem dedicated to maintaining the routines and activities that define their school lives. The scraping chairs, creaking doors, faint laughter, and shadowy forms are all expressions of students eternally engaged in their daily lives, reliving lessons, friendships, and games that were abruptly ended. Even today, when the building is quiet and the older hallways sit empty, the traces of the past remain. Chairs scrape along floors, doors creak, and soft laughter echoes through deserted classrooms. Shadowy figures move among the hallways, endlessly repeating their school days. At Brunswick Middle, the spirits of students who never left continue to inhabit the spaces they loved, preserving the energy, innocence, and routines of childhood. In a haunting, eternal replay, Athens Elementary School, located in the heart of Athens, has educated generations of children, its classrooms once bustling with laughter, lessons, and daily routines. Over the years, many of its wings have seen renovations, expansions, and repurposing, yet one section remains abandoned, an older wing of the school that has been left untouched for decades. Though empty of living students, this wing is far from silent. Teachers, staff, and visitors have reported an array of strange occurrences, suggesting that the energy of the past has never truly left. Phantom children seem to roam the hallways, reliving moments of school life long after their own time has passed. The most frequently reported phenomenon is the sound of laughter. Sometimes the laughter seems to circle around observers, drifting from room to room as though the children are playing hide and seek. Teachers who have ventured into the wing after hours describe an almost tangible presence, a feeling of being watched or followed by unseen students, as the giggles rise and fall in pitch and intensity. Occasionally, the laughter is accompanied by the patter of small footsteps, rushing and retreating along the wooden floors, giving the impression of children racing through the halls. Movement of furniture and classroom objects is another hallmark of the hauntings. Desks and chairs often shift slightly, as though pulled into new positions by invisible hands. Chalk moves across blackboards without explanation, forming smudges, lines, or even faint letters. Teachers who enter the rooms sometimes find paper scattered across tables or books neatly arranged in patterns that suggest someone has been studying or playing with them. Even when the wing is completely empty, observers describe the sensation of the space as alive, animated by forces unseen yet familiar, replaying routines from decades past. Lights are known to flicker unpredictably in the abandoned wing. Fluorescent fixtures dim and brighten, sometimes in rhythm with the sounds of footsteps or laughter, creating an eerie sense that the wing itself is responding to the presence of the spirits. Some staff have described walking into a classroom only to see the lights blink on, as if inviting them inside, then flicker out when approached. Others report that hallway lights seem to guide them along, illuminating the path as though unseen children are moving alongside, leading the way through their eternal playground. Shadowy figures are occasionally glimpsed moving through the abandoned classrooms and corridors. These apparitions are generally child-sized and indistinct, seen only briefly in the corner of the eye or through fleeting reflections in windows or glass panels. Observers describe seeing small figures darting past desks, peeking around corners, or crouching behind furniture, only to vanish when looked at directly. Sometimes multiple figures appear at once, suggesting games of tag or other playground activities, their movements energetic and purposeful. Despite their ethereal appearance, the figures seem benign, engaged in the playful routines they carried out in life. Local legend provides context for the hauntings. Many believe that the spirits belong to children who spent long hours in the wing before it was abandoned, some of whom may have died young or been taken suddenly by illness or accidents. The story suggests that these children as spirits remain bound to the wing, replaying moments of their school days in an endless loop. The laughter, footsteps, and shifting objects are interpreted as echoes of their unfinished play, studies, and exploration, a fragment of lives that continue to exist within the physical space they once inhabited. Staff and visitors recount experiences that blend curiosity, awe, and unease. One custodian reported hearing a chorus of giggles and the rapid tapping of small feet while walking to the wing late at night. When he looked into classrooms, he saw a desk slightly out of place and a chalkboard faintly marked with smudges that appeared freshly made, yet no one was there. A teacher staying late to prepare lessons felt a cold draft sweep through the hall, followed by the unmistakable sound of someone running, only to find the hallway empty. These encounters, repeated over decades, have become part of the school's lore, a shared acknowledgement that the abandoned wing is far from lifeless paranormal investigators who have studied Athens Elementary. Report consistent activity audio equipment records faint laughter, whispers, and footsteps. Motion sensors sometimes detect movement that cannot be explained. Cameras occasionally capture fleeting shapes moving through classrooms or darting along corridors, and temperature sensors record sudden localized drops. These findings suggest that the energy in the wing is persistent and structured, tied to the routines and activities of the children who once filled it. Despite the eerie and often unsettling phenomena, the spirits of Athens Elementary are generally considered harmless. The laughter, movement, and shifting objects are expressions of playful curiosity, not malice. Visitors often leave the wing with a sense of wonder, as if witnessing a glimpse of childhood frozen in time. The phantom children continue their games, their studies, and their exploration, inhabiting a space where life and memory intersect in a tangible way. Even today, when the hallways are silent and the classrooms are empty, the abandoned wing of Athens Elementary remains alive with echoes of the past. Phantom children giggle, run, and play. Chalk moves across blackboards, and furniture shifts without cause. Lights flicker in rhythm with unseen activity, and shadowy figures move through the corridors, forever engaged in their school days. In Athens Elementary, the energy of childhood endures, a spectral presence that keeps the laughter, curiosity, and joy of the past alive for anyone who dares to enter. And there you have it, my brave explorers of the supernatural. 25 haunted schools in Georgia where students never left. From empty classrooms to abandoned gyms, these spirits roam the hallways, reliving lessons, games, and friendships that were cut tragically short. Next time you walk past an old school, listen closely. The sound of footsteps, whispers, or moving desk might not be imagination. It might be a student still attending class.